Did you know you could do this with Tuberal? Wait a minute.
We can't melee that.
Double.
Wait.
Oh.
Yeah. Or that you could burn Mozzie pests like this.
You know what? Just take it back. Just take it back. I can do that. Yeah.
They have you covered.
I got me one.
You're thinking of a grenade.
God, I love Brava. Such a cool operator.
I'm G, and this is my gaming experience. I've been playing Rainbow Six Siege since it came out in beta. I'm not the most mechanically skilled player, but I make up for it with my brain, and you can too. I think anybody can learn Rainbow Six Siege if they pay attention to the little things, and that's what this video is all about. I'll be going over the specific jobs that each operator in Rainbow Six Siege has and how you can perform them for yourself, from default setups to more intricate interplays between other gadgets. Each operator in the game, from Tuberal to the original vanilla ops, is covered. So by the end of this video, I can confidently say that you'll know how to play every operator in Rainbow Six Siege for 2024. Ram's job is to get vertical control safely and efficiently for her team. She does so with a remote-activated bulletproof tank that can drive either forwards or to the left or to the right.
Bro, that should get out the way.
She gets 3 of them, and they can only be destroyed by shooting the gas tank in the back or by getting blown up by impacts and C4. Ram's a pretty solid support character with this gadget on her own, but she also has a pocket shotgun and a really good primary AR with scopes attached. You can combo up the boogie card with the shotgun. From here alone, just with one character, I can shoot mute jammers off of the wall, make this position on Snowmobile unplayable, and if I walk a little bit further back and take out my shotgun, I can cut off the connector rotate here, as well as a default Mira and a default rotate. And if you line up your aiming point with the metal beams like this, you can throw smoke grenades to help your team. Think of how difficult it's going to be for the defenders to stop the defuse if you're smoke planting here. If the case gets planted here, there's not a whole lot they can do. The main thing you get out of playing Ram is safety. You can hurl the car through barricades, for instance, and then work the vert. While the car is working, if somebody wants to swing and disrupt it, you can just shoot them. Unlike Buck or Sledge, who have to look at what they're trying to destroy and then usually have somebody play flank watch for them. So Ram can work vert and be her own flank watch. The obvious downsides here: it's a great gadget for getting a ton of vertical, but it's not as good for getting precise vertical. But she is nice to have for the strats if you want to work her in. In my opinion, she's a really fun and dynamic character. She's really good on maps that rely on verticality to get things going for the attack. This video is sponsored by Manta Sleep, and I'm gonna need some Manta Sleep tonight because I'm actually running on about 5 hours of sleep because of animals in my attic having a turf war. If you hear them at any point during the ad read, it's because of that. I have to get this video done, so I just gotta put up with it. My money's on the one here, I think. Yeah, there they go. My money's on this one. So there's the big guy, and there's a couple of little guys on the other end. Big guy's winning. He's winning the 1v2. And if I'm being real, you know, Manta sleep masks are so good. They conceal so much light, and they put me in such a nice, calm, meditative mood that I could put this on and sleep right here in my chair. I could sleep through all the squirrel fighting. I could just... So yeah, Manta can't deal with your squirrel problem, but they can deal with your sleep problem. Maybe even your sleeping and squirrel problem, you know, if they're correlated. Premium materials like this silk mask that I have, they will beat any of the store-bought competition by a country mile, I promise you. If you're used to getting the cheap, you know, $20 stuff you're probably used to getting off of Amazon, this stuff is the real deal. It is a very big difference. For what it's worth, there's a Bluetooth mask that might help drown out some of that noise, if you also have the same problem that I do. Go to my link in the description, use the code GGE to get 10% off of your order. That's at the link in the description. Use my code GGE to get 10% off. Anyway, thank you Mantis Sleep for sponsoring this video. I'm gonna attempt to take a nap with squirrels in my attic.
My lip balm. It kills people.
What? Did you just growl like an animal?
No.
Fenrir's job is to provide map control across the entire building with intel gathering. The gadget is a remote activated gas emitting mine that blocks the vision of people who are in its effective radius. It will only emit gas when it is deployed and active like this. His gadget can be seen across the entire map and remote activated. Plus, you also have an indication of where the gadget is exactly and when people are walking into its effective radius. So instead of putting your mines right next to the bomb site, think of doing it this way instead. Go for a top floor roam with Fenrir. Throw a mine at the top of the staircase on the top floor. Make rotates and head level holes. Mine off the common entries. Put barbed wire on the window jump-ins and common entryways. Don't forget that you can pick up the mines in the middle of the round. You can adjust to whatever the attack is doing. Let's say they rotate off of the main hit and they go for server. I just cut it off with one easy play. Don't activate the mines until you're aware that the attackers are entering the building. If they see them open during the drone phase like this, they're probably going to swap to Twitch or Brava and try to get them. So do what I call the trapdoor spider technique. Wait for them to get into the range, activate it, then go for the pick. Disengage it, and then maybe go back to site if you have to. It can be destroyed when exposed like this, but only by bullets. When closed up, you can't shoot it. You can blow it up with a Gon 6 or any other kind of explosive, or you can hack it. But this is bulletproof utility. You need something to clear it if it's played correctly. If you lose a mine like the one I just shot, Fenrir will only be able to activate 2 at a particular time. The gadget works on a code system. Whenever the gadget is active and it gets destroyed, you lose a code and you lose the ability to activate as many mines. Right now, since I've lost 2 active mines, I can only keep 1 active at a time. If I lose my last code, that's it. I can no longer activate the gadget. Fenrir is a great flex character, capable of going anywhere between roamer and anchor depending on what the situation calls for.
Arch. He's dead.
I'll steal it! No one will ever know!
Brava's job is to deny defender utility while also gathering some information if she can. Kind of like Twitch, but with a different twist. Much like Twitch, she gets 2 special drones unique to her, plus the already existing attacker drones you get by default. So 4 drones total. Brava's drone is a gadget thief. It has 3 charges it can use to steal defender utility that's electronic, including default cameras. Here you can see I get a ton of information just off of 1 default camera, assuming the defenders don't shoot it right away. And even then, worst case scenario, you still deny a camera. But here I can see lots of crosses coming from the top floor here, which is a really, really advantageous vantage point for the defense, as well as Kanto hallway here. Plus, I have sound cues on anybody playing around lobby. Let's say that they, jiggle peek behind the staircase here. I can hear that. I can hear them go towards tellers, etc.
Like just jump in.
Head right on 4, right on 4. That's his head.
Nice.
You can swing him.
Fellow, when you have time, literally just press space.
It's the size of a drone, and you can conceal it and maneuver it around corners and little cracks and crevices the same way. So you can get free information, and the defense might not be all the wiser. There is one catch. The drone does make a little noise. It makes a little sound cue that can indicate something is getting hacked. So just be mindful of that. If the drone gets destroyed before the hack is finished, there's no hack done. If the drone exits the effective range before the hack is finished, there's no hack done. So you're going to see Brava brought a lot on Chalet. You're going to see her brought on Bank. Maps where you want to get a concerted, effective top floor roam clear and tons of information really fast. Brava fits into that composition really well, even if she's not solely dedicated with an ability directly towards roam clearing like Dokkaebi or Lion or Jackal. She helps you get that information right away, and then when it comes down to the site hit, that's where she really starts to shine. If she can get a couple of drones in the site and nobody's paying attention, she can hack Maestro cameras, Fenrir mines. The main difference between her and Twitch when it comes to wall opening is that if you hack something like a Cade Claw or a Bandit Battery, it's not gonna steal it, quote unquote. It's just gonna overheat it and blow it up. Solis is classified as an intel operator, and while that's true, she really excels as an anti-intel operator. The gadget is an electronic scanner much like IQ on attack. except it helps you out a lot more on defense because you can find drones. Drones that are active are one type of gadget that Solis can see, but she can also see operators like Lion, Jackal, and Finka when they have their abilities active, and she can see when people are on their phones, when they're droning stuff out, as well as electronic utility on walls. Solis's primary job during the prep phase is to get rid of as many drones as possible. In the right place at the right time, Solis can completely devastate the enemy's drone economy, and if the enemy team is not being careful with their drones, they can put themselves at a serious disadvantage. This is especially true on big maps like Nighthaven, which rely a lot on extended roams. If you don't have drones to help out with the roam clearing, you are fighting from a really, really tough position. So when you're playing Solis, you don't want to be doing this during the prep phase. Stop. Stop, stop, stop. Don't do this. Prep phase starts. You leave the bomb site, and then when you get to the exterior of the building, get on your scanner and start looking for drones. You want to get rid of as many drones as possible. Go to the exterior edges of the building, the entrances where you'll find common drone holes, doorways, anywhere where a drone can get inside that you expect. You want to be there. You want to clear it. She can also see the diffuser when it is dropped, and she can tell if somebody has picked it up or not, because it's not there anymore. In a pinch, to help your teammates clear out a drone that's next to them if they can't find it, you can use a scanning tool that will red ping them, but you won't be able to use your scanner for a little bit longer. At the time of recording this video, Solis is pretty freaking powerful in the competitive scene right now just because of her ability to wreck the drone economy. I don't know how much her ability is going to change in the future, but I think it'll pretty much play out the same way with some much needed tweaks. Grim's job is to gather information for his team without getting exposed himself, and to do a little bit of crowd controlling in the process. He does so with a launchable gadget that can either bounce off of surfaces or stick statically to surfaces. Static placement, bouncy placement. Unlike a drone that has to get into position and then go through a bunch of different doorways and stuff like that and can potentially get shot in the process while it is en route to its secure info gathering location, Grim can just get out his bailiff pistol and shoot a canister of bees through the floor. Thanks to the bouncing feature, he can do it safely without exposing himself too. You gotta be a little careful to make sure the bee canister doesn't stick to the metal bars. The sharper your angle, the more likely it's gonna go through. See, in this case, it worked. And that revealed this position behind the dresser without me having to get direct line of sight on it, which is good. We like that. It's easy to compare Grim to Capital, and the purposes are similar. You can use this gadget in a delaying sort of fashion for post plants, but Capital is an area denial character. Grim is not. Also, Grim gets a lot more usages out of the bee canister than Capital's firebolts. Plus, Capital does not have the bouncing feature, which is not insignificant.
I
kind of baited you. That was my bad.
If you want to get info on Cocktail Balcony, for instance, you don't get on Capital and then firebolt off Cocktail Balc. Like, that's not going to do anything. You need to do that for a site execute. You need to hit a timing with that. With Grim, you have a little bit more leeway. You can bounce bees towards Cocktail like so. Just don't get shot in the face while you're doing this. Make sure no one's going to swing you from the bar, for instance. But as you can see, this does cover a pretty decent amount of area. It's really good for flushing out opponents behind hard cover. People like to play on this piano stage, for instance, and swing you off a contact. Grim makes swinging off a contact a lot more difficult because you can actually anticipate their swing and just pre-fire them before they do it. You kind of have to get in the habit of the timing of it. You can't just have the canister out like this and then just walk around. You want to shoot it, then get your gun up as soon as possible. Probably the most misunderstood operator in the game. Sens' job is to open up a path for their teammates to make executes and post plants that other operators can't really do. The gadget rolls along the ground and bounces off of surfaces. Along its path, it'll make a line of sight blocking wall. I'll demonstrate some Sens throws that I like to do for a fast clubhouse dirt hit. And then I would plant here, assuming that my teammates have blue control. These walls will prevent anybody from contesting the gun rack plant. And then they vanish in that time frame as well. You get 3 of them. You can also throw another one for the post plant in my example that I just used. And you also get frag grenades. So you get a lot of mix-up potential with this operator. But a lot of people write Sens off as useless because, well, they don't really plan out how they're going to use the roly-polies. And they don't really like the main AR, I think. That's another reason. However, Sens is a 3-speed with frag grenades with an interesting, niche use case scenario gadget and the best DMR in the game. 2-shot body kill at pretty much any range. So I hesitate to call Sens a bad operator. You just need to kind of plan out what you're doing ahead of time.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna
Dude.
turn on music and it's gonna be over.
Should have been on Brava. One's cocktail.
I'm on your.
I think we just got to find an opening and just go. I guess Sends off like freezer. We could hit the guy on cocktail. Okay, I'm gonna Sends off freezer and then we're just gonna fucking full send.
I'll check freezer. I'll check freezer.
Okay.
Real quick. Check freezer. Oh, my drone got shot. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna nade it after the Sends walls. Okay.
All right, yeah.
Here we go.
Are we just dropping Scott here?
We're just full sending it. Yeah.
There's still a Mira. There's still a Mira.
I know. I'm gonna nade it. All right, go. Wait, no. Oh, fuck me.
Oh, uh-oh.
That's just really.
No. You're dead.
Okay.
Dead.
I hear cocktail. I think.
Nice. Oh my god. No, I'm dead. Go Skylight. We have a cam for case. We have a cam for plan. If you want to go Skylight, you can. Sorry. Good idea. You got it.
Drop.
Jumping down.
He dropped. Good round.
Let's
Oh
go.
my god, bro.
That's my IGLG.
I cooked.
Let's go.
Azami's job is to set up the map according to her and her teammates' needs, blocking up line of sight angles, as well as making it difficult for the attackers to make movement. Kiva barriers are basically bulletproof geometry that fans out flat against surfaces. They run on a timer, and you generate them over the course of a round. When you place the Kiva barriers, you don't want to place them flat against a surface that an attacker can just melee. Sometimes you have to do this in a pinch, but if you can help it, you want to space it as far away from the angle as possible. The Kivas will break with vault and falling animations just like that, and with 3 melee hits. A really common example you'll probably see in ranked is Azami for Clubhouse Rafters. This is a play as old as day. You plug up the rafters, and then it's a lot more easy to play off of this position. You can also create little pixel angles as well. Azami is also really good for plugging up line of sight angles from hatches. On Clubhouse Basement in particular, there's map geometry that she can throw the Kivas on. This Kiva barricade is the difference between an attacker being able to shoot somebody's feet and not shooting them. And this Kiva makes it difficult for an attacker to contest the boxes near gun rack and dummies. When there's not a lot of time left on the clock, you can keep any pocketed Kivas to block up routes the attackers might want to take for a play. It doesn't seem like much when we're looking at it in a custom game, but with 15 seconds left on the clock, this play right here can be the difference between the attackers pushing out of dirt and pinching you or not. This Kiva placement lined up with a chandelier on bank facing the northwest windows would be an example of a pre-placed position. You can put this at the start of the round and get away with it. Use a little bit of pre-planning, coupled with some reactive plays, and Azami can get a lot of mileage for you. Thorn's job is to make the defenders panic and deviate their crosshair placement. She does so with a throwable gadget that runs off of a proximity-based and time-based fuse. She can toss the gadget like a conventional smoke canister, which allows her to nestle it into cracks and crevices like this, which is really, really useful. We're going to take advantage of this a lot with Thorn, because as long as the LOS is visible, it'll do damage to anybody caught in its radius. You walk in the radius, it winds up, and then if you're caught in the blast radius by the time it detonates, it'll do a lot of damage, potentially lethal damage. It's not exactly 100% a bad idea, but one of the problems with throwing thorns on doorways like this is that most of the time, if you're not playing really active off of them, people can just run in and then run back, and then the effect of the gadget is pretty much negated. So you want to place the traps in ways where the attackers are going to be hugely disadvantaged once they trigger them. This is a good example of a setup I run on Villa all the time. People will usually sprint right past the door frame here if they're making a study to AV hit, run past this, look up, maybe run forward here, trip this, maybe run past the couch, trip this. So stacking the thorns on top of each other is a really, really good way to make a room very difficult to push. And if you're playing a shield, you can take advantage of that by taking gunfights. I also like to throw my thorn traps on chandeliers like this. If I just throw the thorn trap right here at the doorway, then I could walk back to safety really quickly. Here, it's a little bit different. Half the time, players won't even look up at this. Throwing the mines into little cubby holes like this is really, really cool, because unless your opponent clears the corner like that, they're not going to see it until it's too late. You wouldn't have a single idea that they're there unless you walked really, really up close. So this is going to be a huge pain in the butt to push, and it's all because I picked one operator and hit my middle mouse a couple times. Osa's job is to provide firing support from a distance for her team, usually on wall breaches with a bulletproof shield that is see-through. Not an exact example 100% of the time, but it's a very common one that works. And it can work like a makeshift Monty, like this. So there's nothing wrong with doing that on occasion as well. When the shield is deployed, it can be meleeed like this. So if you deploy it on windows, like this, it's probably going to get meleeed. Just a heads up. You can pick the shield up and walk around with it and place it wherever you want. She's really good for wall opening, especially with map geometry like this, where you have lots of lawn angles, lawn sight lines where you're going to be fighting from a distance. When a wall gets open, what the defenders are going to try to do is contest you. They can do this a number of different ways. They can play off a contact, they can quick peek you, use cameras, and try to stall you for as long as possible. With an Osa, you add another layer of reflexive capability to that is really difficult for the defenders to get rid of. You get 2 shields total. Osa, like I said, is usually going to play backline. She's usually going to run secondary EMPs. I hesitate to think of a situation where she is not going to. You get information on the wall. If you have an IQ, it can help you out a little bit. Make sure that there's a bandit battery over here versus like right here. The radius of the secondary EMPs is quite small. You can't just throw it like a Thatcher EMP. It has to directly contact it. So if there's a cage stick up here, you get the wall open, you put the shield down, and then you play to hold the swings of the defense. When your attackers start making their move, you pick up the shield, you go with them, find a spot to hold crosses with, put the shield down again, then hold for your teammates. Plant goes down, sit, wait. If they swing you, shoot them in the face. Osa is one of the few characters I feel comfortable running an ACOG on, just because I really like to take advantage of it as much as possible with this defensive playstyle on attack. Thunderbird's job is to help her teammates get healing. She does so with a deployable gadget that sits on the ground like this, kind of like a Jaeger ADS, but instead of zapping grenades, it'll zap you with a healing pot. You can place multiple gadgets on the floor together and basically make a little healing station for your defenders to come back and get picked up on. If you're down, it'll revive you. And even if you're at pretty low health, like let's say 25, 30 range, if you run into a bunch of these, you'll be back in fighting shape in no time. The gadget works on a cooldown, and the cooldown will run infinitely over the course of a round. It's only limited by the amount of time in a round per se. Right now, Thunderbird doesn't really get a lot of attention compared to Doc, because Doc can get more potential healing in one big go. But with Thunderbird, you're going to be healing a lot more over the course of an entire round. Something that I like to do with Thunderbird is play her for sites below soft floors where there's going to be a lot of vertical fighting. Fighting through metal bars tends to result in a lot of chip damage, shots in the legs, shots in the arms. Lots of shots, but not a lot of kills, or as many kills. So Thunderbirds are a great way to heal that chip damage that the defenders will usually take. She's good for these kinds of sites for this reason. Keep in mind, you can't really get aggressive with the placement of these things because they will also heal attackers. You heard me right, they will work for attackers and defenders. They do not discriminate. So if the attackers get map control, you will be punished for bad placements of these gadgets. It's an incentive for you to keep them close to the site. That's pretty much all there is to it. She has pretty decent guns. She has barbed wire. Thunderbird's a ranked operator, but she's not a bad ranked operator. She has a really good shotgun and a fully automatic secondary. Flores' job is to deal with as much bulletproof utility as he can. He does so with a remote-controlled car, kind of like an RCXD from Call of Duty Black Ops. It's an exploding drone that has to be deployed on the ground like this. It's big, it makes a ton of noise, and it has a big red light on it. There's a set timer. Once it goes off, it'll leave a hole this big in soft surfaces, which, in my opinion, is not insignificant. This level of damage will also be applied to stuff like deployable shields, bulletproof cameras, anything that's bulletproof, anything that the defenders will use to bolster their defenses. Flores' Rotero drone, as it's called, will usually take care of it. The drone can be shot in this state. Once it is in the detonation cycle like this, it is bulletproof and cannot be shot. Then once that timer starts going off, you gotta get out of the way. Flores was kind of a mainstay back in the utility simulator circa 2020, but not so much anymore. He still is relatively useful. He's got 4 of these things that can blow up 4 pieces of utility, pretty much guaranteed, as long as they don't get shot. And he's also got flashbangs for grenade burn, so he can burn Jaeger ADSs. He can get rid of a whole setup pretty much by himself. Because the drone takes a little bit of time to get into position, and smart teammates aren't just going to let you blow up their stuff, You want to take advantage of elevation, for instance, to get the drone where it needs to be. The drone can jump, and it has about the effective radius of a frag grenade, so even though you're probably not going to get any kills with this thing in its detonated mode, this will still force somebody off of this position off a cocktail. Imagine if you managed to get a really good skylight plant going here. You can go up to the top, and then if you have a couple of Rotero drones active, you can use these in post plants as well. Set them to blow up before they fall down, and they can't be shot midair. Aruni's job is to deny grenades, utility, and movement to the attackers. She does so with a deployable, bulletproof laser gate. She gets 3 of these things. They can go on windows, door frames, and any kind of wall that's soft or reinforceable. It's marked with a friendly color like every other friendly gadget. When you get close to it, it'll deactivate itself so that you can walk through it unharmed. Otherwise, attackers who walk through this thing are going to take an HP hit. If you throw a grenade through it, or try to, rather, it'll zap it gone, and then it'll go down for about 30 seconds. After the cooldown is done, it'll fan out with a spot you can shoot in the center, and then it'll reactivate just like you see now. You can disrupt this thing's action with your own utility. Let's say if you're smoke and you throw a smoke canister at this, it will disable it. You will burn your own utility, so be careful of that. I've done it more than a couple times than I'd like to admit. Aruni works on window-heavy maps like this really well, because for this particular kind of sight hold, I'm trying to prevent Ying from getting Ivy control or going down blue rather quickly. Likewise, an enemy will try to throw grenades from here, Zof canisters, whatever, and in general, it's just nice to have that little bit of area denial. That kind of HP hit is a penalty that the attackers don't want to incur. So it does a number of different things, but the fact that it works as grenade catch in addition to everything else that I described is really nice to have, because it means you don't have to bring a Jaeger or Wamai for the same kind of setup. In some ways, Aruni is a little bit better for this kind of setup because she also has a robot arm. So you can do basic sight setup with it. Not to mention, she has a DMR on defense, which is really good for this kind of playstyle. It suits her exceptionally well.
Down.
He was not down.
Down.
I have.
Let me hit a Surya.
Well,
Zero, or as the boomers know him, Sam Fisher, has the job of gathering information for his team, while also disabling some utility if he can help it. He does so with a shootable camera that goes out in a straight line like you just saw, and in this particular instance, it's quite useful, assuming that the enemy didn't hear it. A really neat component about Sam's cameras is that they can dig through soft and hard reinforced walls. See this little arrow indicator popping up? That means that the camera can burrow through. Right now, it's deployed flat against the other side, and if I hit space, now you can see what it just did. So you can keep this pocketed on this side. I will shoot another one next to it to demonstrate why this is important. Notice how this camera has pierced through and is visible. It's pretty big, right? It's not exactly difficult to see it. But now, voila. So you want to hit timings with these cameras if you can help it. You don't want to expose them too early. You want to play Zero like a flank watcher. Staircases in general are a good rule of thumb to watch on any map. So if you're having trouble thinking of where to put your drones, where to put your cameras, note that going forward. Any parts of a building with massive overhangs like this, like lobby here on bank, fireplace on chalet, any section of a map with a big balcony like this, where the defenders have a lot of leverage, getting cameras in a big room like this is really nice to have. Lots of traffic will go through here. Occasionally, in a pinch, if I can get away with it, I will shoot a camera below, and then when I'm about to do my hit, if I'm lucky, the defenders won't be anticipating it, and even if they shoot it right away, I might be able to get an idea of where they are, and then go for the gunfight.
Hey, who's that handsome guy? Hello, 911 emergency. There's a handsome guy in my house. Oh, wait a second, cancel that. It's only me.
Ace's job is to open the wall. You probably didn't need me to tell you that. He has 3 sets of throwable hard breach. As you can see, if it doesn't stick to a soft or reinforced wall, it's going to sit here and do that. So you're not going to get punished for messing up the throw too hard. To do a basic ace master bedroom hit, you want to do a couple of things. You want to throw the ace charge at about head level. It falls off, so you got to look up a little bit like you would in real life. Then it'll splay out twice, and then detonate whatever the arms splay out on top of. So right now we have a vault hole, which is cool, but we want something more than that. To finish the job, you're going to throw the second ace charge right at the lip like that, and now we have a walkable hole, which is good for you, because you can peek at full speed and at head level. Now, if you want, you can make some head level holes on the side, but more often than not, throwing multiple ace charges against the wall is going to be used to deny bandit tricking. If there's no bandit, you can keep an ace pocketed, and now I can probably, if I want to, propel over to attic and then help with the split hit from attic tower side. But for the purpose of this example, that's not really necessary. You can also keep ace charges for stuff like deployable shields and Mira windows. But this particular motion, the standing hole, boom, boom, 2 ace charges, that's what you're going to be doing. That's your bread and butter when you're playing ace. The reason that you want to bring ace for sight hits like this is because you're not going to get C4'd like you would with thermite, and you're not going to get shot, or at least you're not going to risk yourself to getting shot. We like mitigating risk in Siege. We like making things as efficient as possible. That's kind of the name of the game, and ace fits that category. Melusi's job is to crowd control the enemy's ability to take gunfights, and take some gunfights for herself. She does so with a deployable trap that deploys off of a proximity basis to enemy attackers. Attackers walk into its effective radius, it will activate, and then it'll slow them down. So in this position in particular, which is an example I cite very often for Melusi plays, there's sitting duck. Similar example of this can be found for any kind of 90-degree angle, because the gadget can only be dispatched, for the most part, with bullets. That's when it's most vulnerable. When it's active, the armor will come off, and then it can be shot. In its bulletproof state like this, you can get rid of it with explosives. But you don't want to deploy the trap like this. Bad. Bad, bad, bad. Don't do this. In this instance, it will activate, and then I can do it safely without having to expose myself, right? Here, it's different. Now, I'm caught, and I have to move my crosshair quite a bit. So Melusi traps are best used to cover guaranteed flanks. Unlike Fenrir, who has to do a little bit more micromanaging to get the most out of his gadget, Melusi is set and forget. You can put these things down at the beginning of the round, and you don't have to think about them for the rest of the round unless you want to play off of them for positioning. She is a 3 armor. Her gun is not that great, but it doesn't have much recoil, and it has a relatively fast rate of fire. So it's a headshot machine. To get the most out of Melusi, you play what I have adopted as the trapdoor spider technique that I coined for Fenrir. Same principle here. Proc, swing. That's pretty much it. Oryx donates his body to Team Rainbow. That didn't come out right. Oryx's job is to be an absolute menace on the roam. Maps with a ton of hatches are great for this guy, for the reason that you just saw. He has escape routes and attack routes that no other defender has, just because of this ability alone. With a pre-planned setup like this, instead of having to cross dangerous terrain to make a rotate, he can take a completely unconventional path like this. Not to mention he gets a little speed boost with this dash ability. You gotta be careful what angles you jump up the hatches though. As you can see there, I wasn't able to because of the vending machine. I'm spending a lot of time talking about the hatch ability because it is kind of that important for him. He has solid guns, don't get me wrong. T5 is very good. And he can also help you with sight setup in unique ways. He can make holes out of soft walls as a getaway tool for himself or for sight setup in a pinch. But what I really like about his dash ability is to just clear entire bits of furniture that nobody else can. There are a couple of pieces of furniture on Cafe just like this, where you can set up a Maestro camera and make that entire default plant spot unplayable. So Oryx can offer you some pretty unique sight setups that you wouldn't normally get. Iana's job is to gather information for her team and burn some utility along the way if she can help it. She does so with a deployable clone that goes out in front of her like this. It is a mock replica of Iana that basically acts like another drone. It works on a pretty quick cooldown, as you can see in the bottom right corner of my screen. When it doesn't get shot or blown up, the refresh rate is pretty quick. So there's a bit of a nuance to getting the most out of this gadget. You want to be selective with the information that you get, and there's no shame in coming out of the clone early to make sure that you don't have a long cooldown. In the past, Iana worked almost exclusively like an entry fragger, but I'd say without frag grenades, she works a little bit more like a support. That's not to say that you can't entry frag. You certainly can with this character. But based off of the way Ubisoft has treated Iana recently, it's clear that they want her to play more of a supportive kind of role. The interesting thing about this clone is that it can be used to burn Aruni gates, which we mentioned earlier. In addition to that, she also has a set of stun grenades that you're usually going to use on her, which can be used to burn Jaeger ADSs and the occasional deployable shield. You have 2 drones that you already have by default, and what is essentially an infinite drone. It can cover a pretty decent distance as well. Obviously, you're a big sitting duck when you are using this gadget. That's your biggest weakness. It's very easy to overextend on this thing if you're not careful. So make sure you do it behind cover. Make sure you do it with teammates to support you. Other than that, her guns are quite good, and I'd say that she fits comfortably as an aggressive flex character at the moment. Wamai's job is to reactively deny grenades. Unlike Jaeger, who will put his ADSs down at the beginning of the round and never touch them again, Wamai has a couple towards the beginning of the round, and then more later on in the round. You can see the timer in the bottom right of your screen. He can throw them like a frisbee, which is really cool because it allows him to stay in one position and hold it while simultaneously supporting his team. He has a 1.5 scope on a very good SMG in terms of its recoil. It is a laser beam. So he is a very good flex character. He can do a little bit of everything. He can anchor. He can go for a slightly extended roam. Wherever you need grenade catch, Wamai can help you. What is important to note about Wamai's magnets, as they're called, is that they don't work the same way that Jaeger ADSs and Aruni gates do. Aruni gates and Jaeger ADSs will destroy the grenade outright. Wamai discs will simply catch the grenade, whisk it over to the position of the magnet, and then the grenade will detonate over there instead. So for instance, flash grenades can still flash you if they are caught by a magnet. This has a double-edged kind of implication. Sometimes these things can be used in a way that can disrupt the attacker's positioning, which is the way that I like to play Wamai, because it's more fun that way. I like to put Wamais outside. Usually, attackers aren't going to look up at something like this. They'll sit out here, get ready to throw a grenade, and then all of a sudden, there's a flash grenade sitting on top of them. So if you can find tricky geometry like this, I highly encourage you to try it out. You would be surprised how often it works. And even if you don't manage to get a kill with a frag grenade, per se, you can still force people to move around, and that is good, because it'll mess with their comms, it'll disorient them, and you can take advantage of that. Do not discount it. The most conventional way to play Wamai is to just focus solely on the grenade catch and don't try to overcomplicate it, which isn't as fun, in my opinion, but, you know. This is the benefit. You get to throw it over a long distance. It'll stick to any kind of flat surface. If you think about it this way, one moment I can deny grenades for clubhouse rafters, and then if wall gets open and I stay alive, I can deny grenades for the wall open. So I can react to what's going on around me. Callie's job is to... Callie's job is to get the wall open. I'm pretty sure. Oh my god, ticket.
Wait, what? I lost health? I didn't even notice.
I should have called that.
No, you did.
No way he's still there. I can't see him from this angle, man. Dead now.
Damn.
I mean, she's not a bad character. I'd hesitate to call any character in Rainbow Six Siege quote-unquote bad, but she is a bit of a one-trick pony. There are a couple of situations where she is quite useful and a whole lot where she's not, but that doesn't mean you can't get some mileage out of Callie. Far from it. I'm using Clubhouse for this particular example because of the unique spawn situation here. There is something like an overhang where you can look at the main wall and help your teammates open main wall without having to expose yourself. So Callie's gadget is a shootable lance from an underslung rifle. What you just saw there is going to destroy anything on the other side of a reinforced wall within that effective radius, including Cade sticks, bandit batteries, mute jammers, etc. You cannot stack this gadget on top of a wall where there is a thermite charge. It will blow up your friendly thermite charge. Do not stack it the same way you would as Thatcher. That's really important. So you shoot your lance, then you get the stuff off the wall. Teammate opens the wall, then you use the sniper rifle to hold crosses and anybody trying to swing your planter. The sniper rifle has some unique qualities about it. Destructive capability is one aspect. So in a pinch, it's not a bad way to set up some line of sight holes. Callie also gets one of the better machine pistols. It's basically a pocket FAMAS. These are the damage profiles of the sniper rifle. As you can see, it packs a serious punch, except when you shoot him in the legs. Or the arms for that matter. Still, there's pretty much no damage drop-off to speak of. I'm not a big fan of scoping in with this thing. Kind of the same reason that I don't like scoping in CSGO. Goyo's job is to waste as much time as possible for the attack. He does so with 4 deployable spicy lunchboxes that can be detonated by shooting them in the red, or if they get blown up by explosives.
Oh, what's that?
On one hand, they're passive in the sense that you place them and then wait for the right opportunity to strike, but they are active in terms of when you decide to activate the trap. Goyo is really good on bunker-style maps like Oregon, where there's not as much destructive potential for the attack to manipulate the map. You funnel the attack into a particular kind of choke point, and then, when they're about to try to do their sight hit, you shoot the trap. What I'm showing you right now is a pretty decent set of Goyo defaults for basement. This will deny the laundry push. Oh, he also has a DMR that's a shotgun, which is kind of cool, by the way. So yeah, your closet player can shoot this Goyo, which denies the laundry hit. Somebody holding freezer can shoot this Goyo, which denies the freezer hit. Your E-box player can shoot this Goyo, which denies the blue hit. And your site player can shoot this Goyo, which pretty effectively denies the default plant. I'm done yapping. Let me show you how dangerous this thing can be. I think Goyo's super slept on. That's a pretty decent amount of damage, and look at the area that it covers. If you were counting correctly, yeah, that's 20 seconds. So you get 4 of these things. You can deny, theoretically, for up to a minute. That is a third of the action phase that the attackers have. Goyo has great guns. He is great at pathing manipulation. Super slept on character, and I think a lot more people should be talking about him. Amaru's job is to get into the map as fast as possible and hit timings for flanks that other attackers can't. She does so with a gadget that allows her to grapple hook onto windows like this. In the context of a game like Siege, a movement ability like this might not seem that powerful, but the resource that you conserve with Amaru is time. And that's something you can really use on attack. If you coordinate this particular hit with an extensive drone game from your teammates, you can clear Oregon Tower quite quickly, which can help you get out of control even faster. The gadget can also get you to the top of a building like this. The hook can also work through hatches, and you don't need to detonate the hatch before you do so. So if your team is about to do, in this instance, an Oregon bedroom hit, you can wait for them to start the execute and then hit a nasty timing from the flank. Amaru can run the G8, which has a big magazine and a ton of damage output, or what's basically the best shotgun in the game right now, and an SMG-11, which is basically the best machine pistol in the game right now. So suffice to say, she has some of the best guns in the game right now, and she has a pretty decent mobility gadget. So she's essentially confined to a role of an aggressive entry frag flex hybrid. If no one's paying attention, you can get some crazy picks with Amaru. Nokk's job is to sneak in behind enemy lines, particularly camera networks, and hit crazy flanks. She does so with an ability that conceals her from cameras, kind of like how Vigil is concealed from drones. It is an active ability with a set amount of time that you can stay active, and a recharge that you can flip back and forth between. You can see the timer in the bottom right corner of the screen. The camera nullification works a pretty significant amount of time, potentially walk past any bulletproof camera or Maestro camera set up. However, the reason that I'm moving like this is because I still make noise, which is different than how the gadget used to work, and some people don't like that very much. Typically, you get into cover, you wait for the gadget to charge again, and then you go for a pick. Whenever you're firing your gun or sprinting, the gadget will glitch out and then show where you are on a camera for just a brief second. Nokk has frag grenades, and her FMG9 isn't a terrible primary weapon for what she does. She relies heavily on split pushing, playing off of timings that your team is doing, and lack of awareness by the defense. She doesn't really work like Cav anymore, considering the noise output is no longer reduced when the gadget is active. She has to rely on her ability to walk past cameras. That's kind of the calling card with Nokk. It takes a lot of timing and a lot of patience in terms of game flow and when to do what you need to do. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend her for inexperienced players. Warden's job is to hold the line for as long as possible and maybe get a pick or two along the way. He does so with a rechargeable ability that makes him immune to flashbangs and allows him to see through smoke grenades. Combo him up with a deployable shield and a pixel angle, and this guy can be pretty difficult to get off of a spot. I reference Cafe Pixel a lot for Warden because that's a really common play for him. Typically, if the enemy doesn't have frag grenades or a Gon 6, they're going to try to flash you off of this position. Any other character is going to have to run away when they get flashed. Warden doesn't have to. He can pop his ability, which cleanses the flash if he is blinded, and then continue fighting anyway. He's also a really useful counter for smoke plants, which is not an uncommon thing that people will do to try to surprise you. And more importantly than anything, probably, as a result of this entire section of the video, is that he's a Ying counter. He is obviously a counter to flashbangs, and that's Ying's whole ability. Without a Warden on the board, Ying can pretty much take whatever part of the map that she wants by just throwing 4 of those giant flashbangs into the room and then just full sending with her gun up. Warden does not care. He activates his ability and then he can fight you just like anybody else. So he's kind of in a weird Cold War situation where if you don't bring a Warden, then Ying is on the table, but if you have a Warden, then you don't bring a Ying, probably. Warden's also in a unique position where he has a deployable shield or C4 as options for secondary gadgets. I think either of these are fine. I know a lot of people will immediately gravitate towards the C4. But the deployable shield is, I would probably argue, the best secondary gadget. Pixel angles are your friend with this 1.5 MPX. I think you can run the shotgun if you want, because it's fun. The SMG-12 has a ton of horizontal recoil. So please know what you're doing if you decide to do that.
Want to go strength door?
Mozzie's job is to deny information from the enemy team and maybe get some info of his own. He does so with 3 launchable bugs. Isn't it cute? That have enough effective radius to cover an entire door frame like this. You can see the white circle. This little critter will catch drones that walk into its radius. And if you find a drone on the move, you can shoot the bug onto the drone immediately. Drones get a little indicator when they get too close to this thing, but you'd be surprised how many times they'll just drive right into it without realizing. It's me, I drive right into it. In my experience, Mozzie works really good on small maps like this, where you have a limited amount of entryways into the building, so you can cut those off with drones pretty well. In this example, with a pest here on break door, and another pest by top east, I can make CC and break a serious pain in the ass to drone out. Combo up Mozzie with a Solis or a Mute, and you have a ton of anti-drone. When you catch a drone with the pest, you can control it just like you would on attack. You can jump up onto surfaces and use them as passive intel gathering devices. Mozzie is suited to playing aggressive roams, kind of setting up a network of anti-drone around him with the pests, and then forcing you to take a gunfight with him. And his guns are pretty solid. Not much recoil on the Commando 9, pretty decent damage output. He gets a fast-firing SMG as well with the Aruni. You can put a 1.5 on that. And he has C4. You can combo up the drones that you catch by bringing them back to site and then C4ing anybody who gets caught in their wake. Gridlock's job is to quickly cut off flanks for her teammates and help with post-plant or execute scenarios. She does so with deployable movement denial that she can throw like a grenade. These gadgets are called track stingers, and they will deny movement considerably while also dealing damage. The only way to deal with these things is to impact them or shoot them. And you'd be surprised how much effort it takes to shoot them out one by one. All that time and effort to probably get cut off on the flank. And like I said, you can throw these things pretty far. Maybe don't throw them like that. So for staircases, you want to make sure that the track stinger kind of goes down the lip of the staircase. In this situation, somebody can just vault over it and then it's like, nah, who cares? So don't do what I just did. But yeah, you get the idea. She has a pocket shotgun, which is super, super useful. What you want to do with Gridlock most of the time is use her for post-plant executes or for site executes just in general. Gridlock shines in execute scenarios, whether you are getting the bomb down or playing off of it to make sure it doesn't get defused. In a scenario where the plant is going down, you can smoke off the common entryways, then throw your track stingers for the execute itself, and they make a ton of noise. It's going to make it difficult for the defense to ascertain what's going on. And if you really want to get creative, you can go below or above with the shotgun. Her F90 is pretty good. It's basically a G36 with less recoil. She's a utility powerhouse and a really, really good flex character just in general.
Window, whiskey last. Could come to breach.
Freezer.
Freezer. Walked in on bomb.
Nomad's job is to cut off flanks. I mean, that's pretty much all there is to it. She's one of those characters where the planning that happens ahead of time is a little more important and involved probably than the actual act of placing the gadget. She does so with launchable flank watch that shoots out in a straight line that the enemy can see, by the way, so careful. It's basically a proximity mine that will detonate and then launch somebody backwards when they run into its effective radius. They can hear it though, as you can tell. Now, naturally, if there's a ton of gunfighting and things get pretty chaotic, then it's going to get drowned out. So it's not a bad idea to keep one of these pocketed for a post plant or a site hit. And in some situations, you can use the air jab aggressively to do a forced roam clear. Because at the end of the day, they have to do one of two things. They either have to move or get up and shoot it out before they get air jabbed. Air jabs are good for these kinds of flank watches as opposed to a gridlock, because unlike a gridlock, which can be shot out, boom, 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 and then run up, these things have to be impacted in order to be dealt with. Otherwise, somebody will just go into the trap and have to eat it, and then, well, they're pretty much dead. So it's a deterrent gadget more than anything else. When they do get activated, you can get a free pick off of it. But the higher elo you go, the more of these are going to act like a deterrent than a free pick generator. Nomad gets 3 of these things. I like to use 2 of them in the opening to mid stages of the round. Then I like to keep one pocketed towards the end of the round for the post plant if I can help it. Even when I don't need to do this, because I'm making a video, it's like, I think it's like how beavers just make dams regardless of the context of the environment they're in, you know? Cade's job is to deny the wall or the hatch. Hatches, in particular, are his calling card. Other operators don't really have that electric capability. But what makes Cade stand out more so than the hatch deployment, in my opinion, is just the very fact that you can throw electric denial. You deny the hatch as a result of this ability. What's interesting about Cade's gadget is that it will work through map geometry. Observe. So you would think the effective radius is not enough to go through the wall. Nope. I don't know what kind of power output this thing has, but I'm scared, and I don't think I want to know. So the gadget works through map geometry, which means it works through floors below. And you can imagine how much map control that you can shift by just doing that alone. So if you ban a Thatcher, what the attackers might have to do, if they don't have the coordination, is bring an IQ, look at the wall, and then see the exact locations where the sticks are. They will have to EMP this stick and the one below if they want the entire wall. If you mess up the placement of the sticks, you can use your secondary pistol if you don't want to use the AUG, or your shotgun on floors like this that are destructible. Oh, I missed it. It'll fall on the ground and then you can pick it up again. Cade, a lot like Nomad, is another character that relies heavily on the pre-planning and rote memory aspect of the game, more so than the in-action sort of flashy stuff. If the attackers don't allocate resources over here to deal with the Cade stick on the garage walls, this is usually called throwing it on the numbers. It's an easy strategy to remember just because of that. Here's garage wall 1, garage wall 2. I threw the other one on the ceiling there, but you get the idea. Throw it in the crack right here or else it's not going to work. The circle needs to reach the wall. But yeah, Capital usually would try to get on here and then firebolt you off with the can opener. Now you need to have a secondary EMP to even do this at all. Same thing applies. If you want to bring the Cade stick over here instead, you can have bandit boxes on the wall or mute. And then garage is very difficult to open now. Advanced players might be watching this and going, okay, but we're not talking about Cade tricking. I think that's a little more involved and might be something to cover in a short or a more involved video. But if the video was helping you so far, I'd appreciate it if you give it a like. And I just realized I recorded this whole section saying Cade instead of Kaed. So sorry about that. Clash's job is to arrest ruffians attempting to defuse the bomb without a defusal permit. She does so with incoherent British yelling and a gadget that slows people who walk into its wake. She is a CCing and support character through and through. Her job isn't really tailored to gunfighting much at all. Although she does have a really good machine pistol and she can do the weird, like, turtle Street Fighter move where she, like, turns around. And I'm not going to show you much how to do that. You've probably seen videos of it. But basically, you have Emperor Palpatine for a set duration of time. You see the timer down in the bottom right corner of your screen. When you run out, you're pretty vulnerable. You gotta wait for this thing to charge back up. The gadget will slow and do damage over time to enemies caught by it, but not a significant amount, right? It's chip damage, and it's not irrelevant. You can kill people if they are low enough, but it's more of a deterrent than it is a direct damage dealer. But what is advantageous about this shield is that you can't be shot from the front and you can be used as an info gathering operator. Kind of like how Monty will do it when he has a shield up.
I'm pursuing this.
Alright, Tweety, talk to me.
He's here. Oh, I'm dead.
Basically Monty on defense. Although Monty is good on attack for different reasons than Clash is good on defense. Not having a gun up is a significant disadvantage in a lot of ways, and that's why she doesn't really get a lot of play. But depending on the context, She can get leverage. She is useful depending on the strat that you want to do and the map geometry. It just takes a little bit of knowing what you're doing to get the most out of her, hence why a lot of people don't play her. And a lot of people do play her because a lot of noobs don't know how to play around her, and then they think she's OP because she's a shield, which, you know, I'm not going to get into that. Mav's job is to act as a secondary hard breacher, opening up unconventional angles of attack for his teammates. He does so with a lightsaber, pretty much. I hesitate to characterize it any other way. It seems like the most efficient way to describe it. It's a blowtorch. It's a gas-operated blowtorch. You have an amount of fuel that is indicated in the bottom right corner of your screen. I'm going to show you 3 different ways to open up this wall. The first way is going to cut off a playing position here that aggressive defenders will try to use to get a jump on you as you enter at it. So these holes, assuming this wall is reinforced by the way, will go slightly above head level. Your teammate is going to get on a boost spot here, and now this person can cut off the boost angle, even if they crouch peek from the side. The second method is at head level and can be incorporated by just standing on the green here. You can combo up the head level holes I'm about to make with the other boosted holes, but you will need 2 players. You'll need somebody on the boost angle, and then you'll need somebody playing here. You kind of want to shimmy along the wall. You are dead. Kind of shimmy along the wall. Doesn't have to be perfect as long as it gets done. Your teammate can fight anybody peeking from pit. For the entry on the right, you want to make sure your teammate is covering you. You're going to make it as flush on the right side as you can. You'll kind of get a visual feel for how much you need in terms of size, but there you go. And as you can see, I can't really tell from this position if somebody is even here or not until they swing. So this is a very, very effective way to get attic control without a dedicated hard breach like Ace or Hibana. Here's the third and final variation. If you have somebody playing at head level here at the top of the staircase, it's really nasty. Good freaking luck peeking that. More than one way to skin a cat, more than one way to open a wall. Maestro's job is to get rid of drones, deny plant, and gather information for his team. He does so with a bulletproof camera. If you start firing this thing, as soon as somebody activates the planting animation, you can take him down. So it is a significant threat. Smart attackers will try to get rid of it. Brava is obviously a counter, but you can zap it away with the laser. One of the more effective counters is to smash the bulletproof glass. However, the camera will still work as a microphone, and you can still open it to zap people. It is vulnerable in that phase. Maestro also has observation blockers, and I think that comboing up the obs blockers with the camera is really important. There's lots of positioning principles to incorporate too. So here's a default setup for Top Floor Oregon, one of the most commonly played maps. Maestro has a bailiff, so you're going to be needed to make rotates. I suck at using this thing to make rotates. There's no shame in it. Just get it done. Do not make the rotate on the left side of the soft wall here. Make it on the right towards the wall for this top white games rotate. The reason you want to make it here, pretend I'm a top white attacker. What am I looking at if this is open? Your teammates. So don't do this, okay? Make it on the right side. So the key positioning principles with a Maestro camera is that you want it to be in a position where it's difficult to get rid of, but it also covers a ton of information and foot traffic from the attackers. Lawn, hallways, funnels, corridors like this are your best friends with bulletproof cameras and Maestro cameras. It takes a while for a Brava drone to come by and try to steal it, so you can zap the drone. If the attackers don't have resources to get rid of it with explosives, they have to walk a distance and get map control to melee it. And you can shoot drones that come through here. So high traffic, long corridors, like I said, good placements for Maestros. And this is a situation where the obs blockers can be really useful. You can create a maze of these things, and the elevation is pretty significant. Even if I put it at the foot of pit drop here, it will still cover the Maestro camera placed at head level. So if you're droning this, you have to go through this blocker. Oh, what's on the other side? Oh, well, geez, I still don't know. I still have to keep going and look for more. So put the blocker towards cover, as you can see, right? And you can stack them if you want down a particular hallway. Blockers also work great on rotates like this, because if the attackers get control, let's say they get control of pit, a drone won't be able to see if somebody is rotating out to take a gunfight. Rotates are really high traffic points. So that's camera number 1. Also important to note, camera number 1 only has one path of traffic where it can get blown up from. There's an entryway here. There's an entryway here, right? If I put the camera here, you might look at this and go, okay, well, dude, it can deny plant. That's so cool. Well, big problem, right? So somebody can blow it up from the wall being open. Somebody on this window can blow it up. Somebody takes trophy, can blow it up from cover. Somebody gets all the way down pit, they can blow it up. right? Just think of where attackers can be. Attacker, 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 right? Here it's attacker, attacker. Does that make sense? So this is not a good spot. I can't blow this up if I'm an attacker, and if I want to melee it, I'm gonna have to walk into a bunch of gunfights. You can hear the plant go down with the camera. That is useful info. And if they decide to run up here and try to plant behind the foosball table, you can still zap them a little bit. Then finally, I can have another camera tucked here, and this will cover anybody trying to run out towards Bolo's spot or somebody coming up top white. So it's great that the cameras can deny plants, but you also want to make it as difficult as possible for them to get blown up. You should honestly probably not put it there, because if Hibana tries to open it, then it'll get blown up. Alibi's job is to provide intel for her team with a neat little trick. She does so with a deployable hologram that projects a copy of herself standing up like this, and then if enemies shoot through the hologram, they get pinged. Not an insignificant amount, they get pinged a couple of times. Now my dumbass will shoot these things regardless of whether I know that they're a trick or not, because squirrel. But there are situations where you're going to be taking gunfights on quarter heavy kind of sites like this, and you're going to try to shoot at somebody playing in cover, and well, there's not really a lot you can do to avoid shooting the hologram. So this is nice to have, because when you back off of the gunfight, you're still going to get pinged. You're still vulnerable. And that's useful information for the defense. I know some people like to do the whole 500 IQ thing where they like hide in the hologram and then try to bait it out. In my experience, I don't think this is necessarily a bad tactic, but I wouldn't bet money on it, because a lot of the time, people will just go ahead and shoot them anyway just to be safe. So, you know, it'll probably be a cool looking scene for the Amazon Siege show if they ever do that, but I wouldn't suggest doing it in multiplayer. Again, on maps with a flow that's, you know, really linear like this, these things are going to work really great, especially because of the hard cover you can hide the obs blockers behind. In this particular example, if you place the obs blocker at the center of the stressor, it'll cover both of these doorways. You take cover, they shoot the thing, you see where they are, and then you just gunfight. You do a little bit of old school siege, like lean fighting, you know, bolo peeking. Finka's job is to help her team take gunfights more effectively. She does so with the global health boost ability that's activated up to 3 times. You get faster ADS speed, faster reload speed, and a little health boost that you can see in the bottom left corner of your screen that gradually tapers off over time. The heal will also pick up down but not out teammates, which is really useful in a pinch if you can't get to somebody without compromising your positioning. Finka has frag grenades, which are still pretty useful for this kind of play. She's pretty solidly dedicated to an entry frag role and works best in a team-based environment where you hit the timing for the heal as you take the fights and you take the push. She's really, really good for aggressive rush strats, stuff like blitz rushes down blue Oregon bunker, which I'll show towards the end of the video as well. Just a really straightforward character to play. There's not really a whole lot to talk about. Lion's job is to isolate roamers for his team and help with an aggressive roam clear. He does so with an ability that punishes you from moving while the scan is active. So during what I just did, that buzzing ping that you just heard, if a defender moves during that time period, they're gonna get red pinged a couple of times. And the goal with the Lion scan is not to gather intel. It is to help crowd control when you have the intel. You drone someone, hey, someone's vending. If you have a teammate in stock, if you have a teammate on Canto Repel, for instance, you get the info, you go, hey, let's push this, call, push, and then you finalize. You do so with teammates if you can help it. Lion works best in a team-based environment. I don't think he's a particularly great solo queue character, although if you have pretty decent situational awareness and you're constantly scanning outlines of your teammates, you can get a good idea of when to Lion scan and when to hold off on it. But you don't want to just pop them all at the beginning of the round, just kind of randomly, because you only get 3 of them. Lion has pretty good primary weapon options. He also has frag grenades, so he can deal with a bulletproof camera or 2. In the event that you have one of these available for the site execute, or for the post plant, that's nice, but you really want to leverage it the most when you're doing this aggressive roam clear. Lion gets most of his mileage in the early to mid stages of the round with the scanning tool in coordination with his teammates for a roam. Vigil's job is to go upstairs and waste as much time as possible, especially if the enemy is doing a top-down roam. He does so with a cloaking ability that makes him invisible to enemy drones. It runs on a timer in the bottom right corner of your screen. If you're playing Nokk or Warden, Cav, similar concept. The recharge gradually refills up. You can wait for it, or you can pop it back right away. You get the idea. But obviously the ability is not unlimited. So you want to run upstairs and then wait for opportunities when to use it. Don't spawn in and then immediately activate it and then run up. That's just kind of like, hello, what's going on? You constantly kind of keep an idea of where drones are around you. Use your ears. And then, when you think that the enemy is going to drone you out, you activate the cloak. The reason you kind of want to be selective with the cloak is because of a couple of things. One, obviously, it's on a timer. Two, the enemy can still know that you are in the area. They'll see white lines on that end of their screen that will indicate a Vigil is nearby. They won't be able to pinpoint your exact location, but they can still hear you, and they can still get a general idea of where you are. So it's not complete invisibility. You will still give information. So sometimes you can activate this thing when a drone doesn't even see you anyway, and then reveal that you're somewhere there. So try to keep a mental idea of where drones are, and then activate the cloak. You can also get an idea of where drones are going to be, especially for late flanks, because let's be honest, at a high elo, people are going to have cutoff drones. You're probably going to have a drone here, and you might just run past it and completely miss it. And that's okay. That's one of the things that makes Vigil stand out, is that it kind of takes up that mental bandwidth for you. So instead of having to worry about every single drone that you're going to run into, you just activate the cloak and then you go for the flank, right? Duh. But remember, they're still going to hear you, and they're still going to see the white lines. Dokkaebi's job is to open the main door on Oregon, sit behind white van, then activate her logic bomb as somebody runs down lot. That's what happened to me when I was playing comp once. It was in a scrim, thankfully. Nah, but seriously, basically Dokkaebi's job is to flank watch and also help with the roam clear. She does so with a forcible intel ability. When I say forcible intel, I mean you activate 2 of these charges, so-called logic bombs, and they will force activate the phones of the defenders, and they'll vibrate. You can hear them.
I don't know why.
Can you call again?
Yeah. That's my last call.
What?
Is Big Garage good? We're good in Big Garage, yeah. I'll leave a flank cam and
Soul stat, thank you, Mozzie.
So no red ping, no Jackal scanning, none of that. It's an audio cue, and it'll happen regardless of where the enemy is positioned in relation to you, and it'll happen without a warning cue, like Lion. So Lion, it goes beep, 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 right? With Dokkaebi, it's right. There's no lead up to it. There's no telegraph. That's why Dokkaebi is so strong. That's why she only has 2 of these abilities. So that is the intel gathering portion of the roam clear.
Yeah, okay.
Yo, we have their cam. Do you want to just chill for a second? Yo, one can say, I'm prone. Swing this guy. Swing this guy. Nice. Another one connector. Nice. Jeez.
So usually Dokkaebi and Lion are going to combo up. You call, you know where they are, you get in position to do the pinch, then Lion does the scan, and then forces them to sit or move. Dokkaebi also has a Gon 6, really nice to have. Smokes, her gun hits like a truck from pretty much any range. She has scopes. The best flex character in the game right now. It's not even close. Zofia's job is to get in there and freaking I mean, like, it's not really that far off. I'm gonna be real. Basically, Zofia's job is to get in there and take entry frag gunfights for her team. Due to being a free armor, she's fallen out of the competitive pool almost entirely. But in ranked, that doesn't really apply to you. Her gun is still really, really freaking good, and her gadget is really great for the utility aspect. She's a pretty self-sufficient gunfighter, and she's my favorite entry fragger for that reason right now. What makes her self-sufficient is the fact that she has an intel gathering grenade. Zofia gets 2 types of grenades, 2 shots each. This is an impact. You fire the impact to disrupt setups from the enemy team. There's usually going to be foot level holes here for kitchen prep. All you have to do to make this a completely different angle is just do this. Am I going to try to play this anymore? No. Someone's going to swing me to my left, and then I'm dead. The impact is also useful to get rid of deployable shields. This is a great example for pixel spot. I always bring Zof on this map for this reason. I get a teammate to burn the ADS. Boom, no pixel. Now, let's say we're trying to get piano control. How do I check if somebody is pixel without face checking or without droning it and wasting a drone? The stun grenade has a proximity sensor. So theoretically, I can launch this, boom, then get the pick. Obviously, I stunned myself, but the fuse will go off when the defender is in the range of it instantaneously. If the stun doesn't go off, that's okay too, because that's just telling you that nobody is there. The stun itself isn't that great in terms of helping you get picks. It's more so for the intel advantage. The actual effect of it doesn't really do a whole lot. Ella's job is to... I guess... Fucking... I don't know? That's a nice spot. Why? Why? Ella's job... She's a roamer. She's a 2-speed roamer. She has 3 traps that are objectively worse than Lesion, Fenrir, Melusi, any other active or passive intel gathering trap. Capkin. You play Ella if you like the gun. I don't mind the gun. Sometimes it's fun to use. You know, you can make some cool plays. You have a shield. I hate doing this with these how to play every ops. I did them with the shield operators as like a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke. But with Ella, it's just really tough to justify bringing her, man. You gotta be in like top 5, top 1 percentile of mechanical skill to leverage the high fire rate from the SMG. She got a speed nerf for some reason. The only advantage that these mines have over other gadgets is the fact that they throw a pretty good distance, the radius is wide, and the wind-up time is quite quick. So theoretically, you could sit behind cover, wait for somebody to push, and then like throw the mine at them, boom, go for a swing. But like, the effect of it doesn't do anything. It just kind of like slaps them in the face a little bit. I mean, it might as well have the same effect. You might as well like reach through the computer screen of your opponent and just give him a little like slap. That's what it does. And I mean, that's cool. I guess if you really like the gun, go for it. But Ella's just one of those characters right now where it's like, if I'm trying to give you really good advice, if I'm trying to give you siege advice that you can take in any kind of environment, there's a reason she just doesn't get picked in competitive. Ying's job is... Okay, here's how the gadget works. Ying's job is to get map control come hell or high water. No one's gonna take a fair gunfight with her. That's for sure. So she has a super flashbang. And as we all know, the way flashes work in Siege is that it's not if you look at it. It's whether the flashbang breathes towards you. This little doohickey rolls on the ground like that. Makes a scary noise. And then it sends out a bunch of flashes and a big cone around it. The rolling ability is actually kind of neat because it allows you to basically like place a flashbang in a particular piece of map control that you want. No, stop. Okay, well, you can do that. All right, so I'm demonstrating that early. So you can deploy it through surfaces, which is interesting. We'll get into that later. I did not mean to do that. But yeah, roll it on the ground like that. And you can shoot it in that phase. So you can anticipate the Ying grenade, shoot it, and then you won't be affected by it. That's kind of the counterplay that you have. The way this works is you hold it, you cook it, right? Like with the grenade button, and there's 3 sets of timers. 1, 2, 3. You're basically winding up the fuse when you do this. And you can throw it like a standard grenade. Boosh. Now, you might have noticed something, and this is the important part, is that the flashes, well, I seem to be fine. So Ying has a special kind of visor that renders her immune to the effects of the flashes. And now we're starting to realize what makes Ying Ying. She gets her candelas in there, and then she aggressively takes map control. She forces gunfights. Basically, her job is to force the defense to take gunfights with her or move. So you can coordinate crazy timings with it. She is extremely powerful. She has like, I think a 70% competitive ban rate right now. Maybe around 67. She has 4 of these things. Just a really good operator. Legion's job is to make it as much of a pain in the ass as possible to hop through a window or walk around a door. I've kind of isolated Legion's gameplay loop to those 2 things, but I do like bringing him 4 of those particular kinds of situations, and that's how I'm going to show how to play him. So basically, on maps like this, you have a lot of window vault-ins and tight, narrow corridors where people aren't going to be corner checking very often, where you can take advantage of his goo mine. The goo mine is a stackable mine that applies a damage over time effect to anybody who steps on it, as well as some initial damage. In this case, you can see here, if somebody vaults through radio window, they'll take stacking damage when they walk on these mines. Unlike a frost mat, which is probably going to get shot out right away because it's a really big target, these things you can get away with, you know, putting a couple of these kind of separated from each other, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult to actually, you know, shoot both of them as you come in. Kind of the same idea with doorways like this. People will be focused by looking at head level with their crosshair, come around, swing, right, and then they hit the mine. It is also a semi-crowd controlling ability because it prevents you from sprinting and it prevents you from planting the diffuser. So anybody who steps on it has to go through an animation to pull the needle out of their foot. And it will continue doing damage until they do that. The mines charge over time, and he has a pretty decent complement of them by the end of the round. He can throw them from a distance as well, safely. Lesion is good at pretty much every stage of the round for a pre-planned kind of defense, and he can also react to what's going on around him. So he's a really good trap operator and fits into a lot of scenarios. His gun isn't too bad either. It's a laser beam, and he has impacts. Mira's job is to make it as difficult as humanly possible to take gunfights on wide, sweeping paths of map control. She does so with a bulletproof one-way mirror that makes it very easy for anybody playing on it to swing and pre-fire the living heck out of you. A Mira is of the utmost importance to deal with for the attack, and they're going to allocate a lot of resources to getting rid of it if they're smart. So to keep her balanced, Ubisoft has given her a pretty decent amount of counters. As a Mira, your primary counters are Hibana, Ace, Ashe, and Kali. Ace and Hibana can destroy the wall outright and get rid of the Mira as a consequence. And Ashe and Kali can disrupt the glass like this. As you can tell, if you melee it, it'll also do this. Sometimes, if you can get away with it, you can get a quick drop on people by shooting the canister and then pre-firing them as the Mira breaks, but this is a desperation thing. It's not something you should be really relying on a lot of the time, and there are a couple of situations where it works, but I'm not going to get into it too much, just because it's going to overcomplicate a basic video. But this is the primary weakness. Twitch drones are your biggest counter. Mira also has a pocket shotgun. She's a 3 armor and she has C4. So she is quintessentially an anchor. Her job is to stick near the site and hold it for as long as possible. You might be tempted to set up your Miras like this. I would have done that around year 2. But the problem with this is that it's not as efficient as it could be. For this particular setup on Closet, I would suggest shooting it out with a shotgun like this, because if you don't beforehand, this poster will do like a weird game logic thing where it sticks to the mirror and then you can't see out of it as properly. Anyway, so you reinforce. Mira is really good at creating pixel angles. This is a common standard default Siege 101 pixel angle. You lean towards the direction from which somebody is peeking. In this case, somebody's going to come down laundry and then swing towards the right. I lean towards the left, the opposite of the direction they're going. And then I set up the Mira like so. So they will walk past this. So they will walk this way, right? The direction that I'm highlighting with my mouse. Swing, hard cover, right? You can go back and forth in between the cover. How many opportunities does the enemy have to isolate that gunfight? Like, I'm dead, right? That's just not a good peek to do. That's why Mira's so powerful.
Lodge you have.
Shark J, push.
Insight.
Jackal's job is to hunt down the roam. Pretty simple. He's got a feet thing. He likes feet. Operators will leave footsteps. When they're red, that means they're hot and close by. Why did it sound like I was advertising a dating website? If they're cooler colors, they're further away. Using one of his 3 abilities on the footsteps will yield more intel pings based off of whether it's hot or cold. If it's hot, you get more pings. If it's cold, you get less. But in Siege, time is of the essence, and you can track somebody down, you know, pretty quickly from pretty far away. Additionally, as you're room clearing, you can see footsteps and you can tell if somebody is in the room relatively recently or not without having to drone it. So in addition to getting the hard intel ping, which is nice, you can also just get that soft intel and then peek a little bit more carefully based off of that situation. It obviously colors your vision a little bit and can kind of make it more difficult to take gunfights based off of visual ID. So I try not to make a habit of walking around like this all the time. You'll also get jammed by mute in the vicinity of a jammer. Jackal's kind of fallen out of the favor in competitive metas because Dokkaebi and Lion can kind of do the same thing a little bit more efficiently, but Jackal's not a bad ranked pick. Echo's job is to gather intel for his team and deny plant if he can help it. I don't know if this music's copyrighted, which is why I always shoot it out in videos. He gets 2 of these little pancake-looking drones. They can stick to ceilings, but they can also fly up through the roof like this. And you can do a hard ping to get an idea of how many people are on the roof, which is useful information because it can tell you, hey, if there's like 2 people over here, they're probably doing a heaven side hit. Because the drones make noise, and because they're quite vulnerable, they can be shot out really easily. It's not advisable to put these out in the open like this. You kind of want to conceal them or at least keep them towards hard cover that you can quickly get away from. So let's say you want to hold cigar in this instance, stun somebody, then go for the drone hole real quick to cover. You can also keep yokai drones in your back pocket more or less, wait for somebody to go for plant, then take this thing out, put it on the ceiling, boom, no plant. So try to preserve your yokais for as long as possible. That's how you're going to get a lot of mileage out of Echo. You can also use these things as active drones for your roamers, which isn't a bad idea. Lead ahead with the drone like this, like any other conventional drone, and sometimes you can get some really nice picks. It's just like entry fragging with a typical drone setup. Hibana unana. This op is really good for hatches, unana. Hibana's the hatch queen. Okay, that's like what she does. You can bring her as a supplementary hard breach, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll show you the best site to bring Hibana on, which is bank basement. Main hatches. Front hatches with 4 pellets each. And then you get 2 to open a castle barricade. This gives you so many options. I think a lot of people overlook hatch play in this game. The main thing you get out of a hatch is pathing. You don't need map control when you have a hatch open. You can just drop and then do the hit that you want. Put 3 people over here, 2 people over here, and then you can completely ignore having to push the bunkery style kind of setup they might have for server. Hibana gives you so many options on maps like this. She's hugely crucial on any map with a ton of hatches. In addition to that, she's not a bad fragger. She's got flashbangs, she has a gun with a scope attached, and she also has an automatic secondary. And she's a 3-speed. If the gadget wasn't so freaking important, you could honestly just kind of no-brain it and play it like a default entry fragger. I'm not a massive fan of the gun, mainly because of the magazine. That's the only thing I'm really kind of But having a secondary accounts for that. So she's super, super versatile. She can do a wide variety of things. A really, really nice component about the X-Kairos launcher is that you can shoot it from range. It's not uncommon for Hibana to get on this window rappel here, shoot open the wall, and then cut off a really, really significant amount of traffic on the top floor. You normally probably wouldn't allocate an ace to this kind of thing, but Hibana is perfect for this kind of angle hold. Cav's job is to something with what's essentially a wall hack for a not insignificant amount of time. She has to go through an animation to do it. She'll down somebody, go for the animation, and then she's exposed while she is in the process of it. Okay, so Cav goes up top, activates her sneakum steppies, downs with the pistol, and then gets the interrogation. You've all seen Caveira stuff before. The pistol does a surprising amount of damage even from a distance. The thing with Cav is that she's a ranked operator, and that's a term I throw around quite a bit. Not as a bad thing. She has a great shotgun, one of the best shotguns in the game, honestly. My preferred way of playing her, the SMG is not very good.
Care for your open wall, Bo. Open wall, Bo. Oh, no. Oh.
You play like a rat. So a rat, for those who aren't familiar, is somebody who hides in corners a lot, plays in ways where they can't get easily refragged if they make a mistake. The corner that you least expect, the corner that you forget to check, a rat will be there, and then they'll interrogate you. That's how you play Cav. You play Cav like a ranked rat. And that's great in ranked, but in a competitive environment, a lot of people are going to be playing right next to each other. And so that's going to be more difficult to do. So it's a bit of a gamble pick, and she is certainly fun to play at any elo, but that's what she does. Capitão's job is to make plays with some unconventional designs. He's a bit of a Swiss Army man, capable of doing lots of different things in one really versatile 3-speed package. This is my favorite Capitão strat right here. You shoot out the default cam for free from this wall. You can entry into garage. Then, if the coast is clear, you can clear rafters with these firebolts. Capitão is so good for this particular side hit. If the opponent isn't playing this side of rafters, you can also bounce the fire off of the ceiling on this side as well. That fire does a ton of damage, and it doesn't last too long, but it's enough to force somebody out of position and make them vulnerable for a pick. So that's 2 firebolts from the crossbow. He also has 2 smoke bolts. So for instance, for a server hit here, for a default plant, the bomb can go down, and then you can easily smoke off the only entryways the defenders have to retake. Blind out of top red. And then you can also smoke off cash door. You can do so from a distance. Remember though, that the firebolt does not travel in a straight line like Sam's cameras. So be mindful when you're firing from this kind of distance. Remember to kind of deviate your crosshair up just a tiny bit. He also has a Gon 6. You can get rid of the deployable shield here, for instance. And his gun has a low rate of fire, but it's hard hitting, and I like to run it with an extended barrel because it doesn't have that much recoil. Blackbeard's job is to tilt you. He tilts you. That's his job. He's the tilt operator. He does so with a bulletproof shield that covers his head in the game with one-shot headshot. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Here we go. You're also slower with the shield equipped. You can unequip it to not go slow. Here we go. Here's the Blackbeard play. This is what you do with Blackbeard. You go into a window, you go upside down, you hold an angle, and then when somebody peeks into you and then pre-fires you because they have information, they don't realize they're peeking a Blackbeard, and then you kill them. Isn't that great? Isn't that like really engaging gameplay? Oh my god. Dude, that was so So Blackbeard has a lot of problems going for him, mainly his guns. Like, the SR-25 isn't bad, but it's not the best DMR, and frankly, the AR stinks. I'm not a huge fan of it at all. The stats on it are, on paper and in practice, just not very good. Low rate of fire and low damage is basically the best way to make a bad gun in Rainbow Six. So for pocket strats like this, not a bad idea. I mean, honestly, Blackbeard can work on window-heavy maps like Bank, Consulate, Chalet. But if I'm being real, there's a lot of situations where you could just bring somebody else instead of a Blackbeard. Like, if you want to do the upside-down rappel, you could do that for a Bank top floor hit with Hibana, open up Canto Wall like I just showed you. It's a bit of a one-trick pony operator, this Blackbeard fella. You get 2 shields. When one shield breaks, you put on another one. It takes an animation to do. He's a backline, support-ish character who really excels at fighting from long range, where you're going to take advantage of the fact that people are firing at full auto, and the recoil's, going to like bounce around a little bit, and even if they do, actually hit that one headshot, then you'll have an advantage and be able to take them down. But the shield does not last very long. It lasts like 1 to 2 shots max. So guns like the SMG-11 are going to eat right through this thing, and it's not going to make much difference. But low rate of fire weapons, UMP-45s, Cavs SMG, stuff like that, Blackbeard's going to fry them. Kind of a one-trick operator that's suited to that particular window play like I just showed you. That's his calling card. You're not really going to bring Blackbeard in a serious endeavor aside from that. Valkyrie's job is to provide intel for her team, wherever and whenever she wants it. She does so with 3 deployable cameras that she can throw throughout a room. Due to the dark coloring of them, you can hide them in dark corners pretty effectively. You can also hide them on map geometry that you can reasonably expect most people not to look at, particularly anything with hard cover where there's going to be a lot of engagements and people aren't going to deviate their crosshair without getting shot. So this is a good example on this shelving unit here. You can hear if somebody is planting, and if they get full B bomb control, you can ping the exact location that people are holding from to help with your retake. A common thing to do with Valkyrie is to combo her cameras with C4. Doing this is kind of a no-brainer. It's very common to have a default C4 that you can use to play window hop-ins like this one. See somebody hop in and then kablam. You can do this for a variety of entryways, anything that's soft, really. You could have a default setup for here, a little bit further into CC, right outside the CC door. Lots of options for you. So obviously, Valk is really good on maps where there's verticality involved. One of the things that you get out of Valk is the ability to have a little bit more information for your roam clear without having a dedicated operator. So she has active utility that you can use throughout the course of the round, and then even if she dies, she still has plenty of passive utility that you can use on the site itself. Again, the principle with a lot of gadgets in this game, if you want them to be concealed, you want to conceal them around hard corners that people aren't going to check as often. Good example here. Just one thing to note, when you're on the camera, it's going to leave a little blue light that you just saw. That's going to make it easy to spot. So try not to red ping, if you can help it, please. Have a cam for the extended roam, have a cam or 2 for the site, and you've pretty much done everything you can with Valkyrie. Just light people up with your low recoil, high rate of fire MPX. Buck's job is to work vertical in unique and interesting ways that his contemporaries can't really do. What makes Buck stand out isn't just his ability to go through the floor below, although this is still certainly helpful. Well, I still call this pipes, but it's not really pipes anymore, is it? But he can also go below and disrupt power positions like that. This is hard cover for the site above. In some cases, you can also clear utility on a wall. Buck's whole thing is approaching problems from whatever angle you really want to. That's the beauty of the skeleton key. The skeleton key is an underslung shotgun that isn't just good for dealing damage to soft walls, it's also really good in close range gunfights as well. It's not as good as a typical shotgun, but you are going to get, pretty decent mileage out of it. If I swing somebody who's like right off of this hardcover here, if they're about like that distance from me, it's still pretty reliably going to do pretty decent damage to him. Top it all off, Buck is just one of the most versatile characters in the game right now. The only reason that he's not really at S tier, he's at least A tier, is because he's not dedicated hard breach. But he still has secondary hard breachers. He has a fantastic gun for entry fragging, and he has a Gon 6. Honestly, if you want to pick the best solo queue character in the game, it might just be Buck. The actual range on the shotgun is quite substantial too. If you plan out your verticality hits before you actually get into the building, you can clear angles without having to do anything. So just like that, this hardcover position behind this desk isn't really playable anymore. The shotgun can also work through one floor and then hit a floor below. This is really nice to have, because that way you don't have to directly clear it the same way Sledge would. If you're worried about roamers that are certainly going to try to cut you off and anticipate that, you can pretty much clear whatever you want, especially on the wall. Would you be mad if you got killed by this? I'd be mad. I think you'd kind of have a right to be mad. This is a pretty much unwinnable angle to fight. So yeah, Buck's really freaking good. Frost's job is to force people to move their crosshair. I'm not joking. Now, what's the point in doing this? Well, Frost forces you to move your crosshair by deploying a trap, 3 traps total, that will force you into a down but not out state. You can take the frost mat off, but you will receive a significant penalty for it. You will make sound cues wherever you go. You'll have a ton of damage applied to you, and you'll leave a blood trail. Plus, you're not going to be able to sprint. Your movement is super, super screwed. So regardless, you're either going to do a ton of damage to somebody, or you're going to make them into a free pick eventually. In this case, I have 2 frost mats below the window, and the purpose for this is if I vault over, I'm still frost matted. So window vaults are obviously really good for frost. You can get away with traps like this. Nothing wrong with it. Not going to happen as frequently, probably. You can also put them into default plant spots like this. People might rush around the corner and then not look down and then boom. But generally speaking, these things work really, really good on window vaults. And it's not like Rainbow Six Siege doesn't have window vaults, right? Like, it might seem like an oddly specific thing to fixate on, but there's lots of maps where window vaults are just going to get a ton of traffic. And Frost is really good for that. She also has a deployable shield, and a gun with basically no recoil, and a 1.5 scope. So, you know? Mute's job is to deny drones. What? I thought he was to get the wall. Well, yeah, like to a certain extent, but okay, I'm kidding. I mean, maybe not mainly, but it's certainly an important component. So usually for walls you really want to keep reinforced, Cade is going to be your guy. That's not to say that Mute isn't useful for keeping wall denied. That's one of his tertiary responsibilities. It's really important. But Mute excels at intel denial, and he also counters a couple of important characters. He's really, really important for the fact that he can help with site setup. He has a shotgun, and he's a 3 armor now, so he can't really do super elaborate setups like he used to. But Mute can pretty much handle everything for an Oregon default completely by himself before the prep phase is over. Shotgun the hatch, get the walls, get the rotates. Okay, maybe not everything, but at least a pretty decent amount of it. So I'm spending a lot of time doing this because really, if you're going to play Mute, you should get really good at this component of it. You should get really good at that. But the Mute Jammer will stop drones in its tracks. It's not like a Mozzie pest where you can kind of finagle it sometimes. If I put a Mute Jammer here, see the white line, it's not going to happen, right? Drones are just not going to get through this. So the only thing they can do is shoot it, EMP it, whatever. But they cannot drone through the store. And this is a nice thing to have, right? Slowing down information gathering, making people have to face check stuff is really important. High-level Siege players notice this. They notice when drones are being used and when they're not being used. And they will capitalize on this, and they will make plays off of that. It's not uncommon for Mute to sit here in closet, right? The Jammer is covering the drones. As soon as he... Trapdoor spider technique, right, as I call it. As soon as he hears some sound cues, boom, right? Here comes the shotgun. One of the better shotguns on Mute and Smoke. You get the idea. He's also got the SMG-11. Mute is just one of the quintessential site anchors of Siege. Smoke's job is to set up site and then deny plant and or waste time for his team. Nobody does it quite like him, where other area denial characters have certain kinds of situations where they work really, really good. Smoke is much more versatile and fits into so many more team compositions than his contemporaries. What you want to do with Smoke primarily is deny plant behind pieces of hard cover. That's where you get into the actual gadgetry, because this thing can be lobbed over hard cover. That's what makes him work. He can do it safely. He can do it from behind cover. It's an arc. He has 3 of these things. They will deny area for 10 seconds apiece. So that's potentially 30 seconds. You can understand how when you get towards the end of the round, Smoke is really, really nice to have on your team. As you can see, it covers a pretty decent area. it does significant damage, and it'll stop a plant most of the time if you manage to catch them before they get into the animation. The fact that you can throw it and then detonate it right away is what makes the gadget work so well. You can deny chokeholds, forcing the attackers to make different decisions about how they want to push you. And that's something you can do without having to take a gunfight. Let's say I want to isolate kitchen prep here so that I can take a swing on the main door. Bada bing. Bada boom. I'm pretty sure if I'm doing the math right still, this thing has the fastest DPS of any full auto automatic in Siege with body shots. And obviously the recoil is pretty easy to mitigate and you can hit headshots anyway. You're probably only getting to 1 or 2 gunfights with it. Regardless, this comboed up with a shotgun, comboed up with the smoke grenades. He can throw the smoke grenades, push through them, take gunfights. Smoke is just the best close range gunfighter in the game with all this kit put together. Nobody is close. Thatcher's job is to open the wall. He does so with 3 electrodium exploded grenades, EMP grenades. They will disable mute jammers, cade sticks, bandit batteries, any kind of electronic defender gadget. He also has claymores, one of my favorite things to do when nobody's looking. Sneaky. So as you can tell, he's pretty much a quintessential support character, and he fills in a lot of the cracks that the attack can't really get to, like Ashe, who's more dedicated to entry fragging and getting map control. He's a great backline character too, with an L85. Pretty much no recoil on this thing, tons of damage output, one of the best assault rifles in the game, and you can put scopes on it as well. What makes Thatcher so distinct is that you don't have to do as much intel gathering in terms of where the defender utility is on the wall. For instance, it's pretty common here for Clubhouse, Cade is going to put a stick on this little, wall section where it's going to reach the lip of the wall, and then underneath, more like lounge, I should say, that's going to hit the other side. And usually you got to do intel. You might have to clear from below. Sometimes, Bandit will put his, his batteries on this side, and then you need to figure out where exactly it is so that you can EMP it. But with a Thatcher grenade, you just kind of, like you're chilling. You don't really have to worry about any of that. So if you've played Thatcher with a buddy who's a little more experienced, they might tell you, hey, throw twice at the wall here, throw 2 grenades. The reason that they're telling you to do that is because of Cade. You throw 1 grenade, that disables the claw, and then they're going to throw another one on top of it. That second grenade is going to disable the second claw that they throw onto it, making sure that whatever is on the wall isn't going to get zapped by the time the windup is done with the Cade stick. I've talked about the wall a lot. You can keep a Thatcher EMP pocketed for sight hits. If you don't really see a purpose in doing anything else, when you're actually in the process of your site execute, you can just throw a Thatcher grenade at the foot of the bomb site room and you can get rid of stuff like Capkins, Jaeger ADSs, just anything that happens to be on the floor that you didn't drone out already. It's a pretty wide sweeping radius. Chances are you're going to catch a couple of things. Even if you don't know the exact location of them, you can tell with points enabled and ranked, and that's good enough for me. Sledge's job is to work vertical. Okay. Well, if you hit it on the bar right there, that's what'll happen. So yeah, this angle cuts off roamers coming back from bakery through kitchen prep. This is really nice map control to have. You can also kind of clear off the prep spot if you're in the position to do so. Here's where you can help open the wall. But you're still getting a ton of pressure here. You're clearing the hard cover for kitchen. More hard cover here. Let's clear out the dishes. And you can watch the default plant. Sledge does not have an unlimited amount on his hammer. I think it's 25 swings last time I checked. It is not too uncommon at a competitive level for Sledge players to go through the entire usage of the hammer. But most people I don't think will ever reach that point. And as you can see, you cover a pretty decent amount with the amount of swings that I showed you to begin with. Sledge's gun is also great. It's the L85. What more can I say? And he has frag grenades to deal with the occasional deployable shield. This angle cuts off the rotate in between the sights. In terms of forcing people out of hard cover, this is still pretty useful to have. So somebody has to move there even if you can't get the pick. You can also use the hammer to get rid of Maestro cameras outright without having to do the whole, like, wait for it to open its thing and then shoot back at it. You just bop. Sledge is also really important as a castle counter. You can get on the window, boom, 1 swing instead of having to do the whole, like... I wasn't trying to be funny. That's the amount of difference it makes. Everybody's favorite entry frag. Ash's job is to get in there. Yeah. Sorry. Nah, it like... mean, like, well, you know, everybody said it before. Ashe is the quintessential entry fragger. She has an awesome gun, R4C. Everybody knows about it. It's infamous. It's been in the game for a long time. High rate of fire, not a lot of recoil. Okay, maybe a little bit of recoil, but, you know, hey, pull down skill issue. You get the Pro Pipe. This is a secondary grenade launcher that acts as her primary gadget. Basically, what this thing does is it shoots out and then it has a timed fuse where it kind of drills into something and then explodes after a bit. Now, Ubisoft did add a new mechanic called drilling projectiles. So Callie's lance and Ashe's grenade launcher fit under that category and will break Mira's bulletproof glass. I'm not sure how they're going to repurpose this mechanic in the future, but I have the impression that they will. But it'll dig into surfaces like this, wait a second, and then it'll explode. So you can get rid of utility on walls in this instance. You can also use the grenade launcher to clear positions from below. In this case, Bolo Spot is very vulnerable from an Ashe grenade. As you can see here, that clears that angle in particular. Obviously, what else the grenade launcher is good for is getting rid of deployable shields, bulletproof cameras, stuff like that. Ashe is certainly not a no util character. She doesn't have as much util, but this little pocket grenade launcher is very, very nice to have when you want to do a clear, when you want to make an aggressive hit, and there is defender util in the way. The timed aspect of the grenade launcher is pretty important. You might have heard this particular wall on Clubhouse called Ashe Wall. This is the reason why. Castle's job is to manipulate pathing of the attack. He does so with a bulletproof barricade. Stop! Stop it! He does so with a bulletproof barricade. Aha! What are we cooking? So basically, what we're doing here is we're making it difficult for the castle barricade to be meleeed. We remember this from Azami, right? We do this principle with Azami barricades. Same idea. Can't do anything like this, and you can't sledge it. So you want to space it away from a position where the attack can get to it. However, and this is something I hear a lot, don't put castles on windows, it's a waste of time. Oh my gosh, they'll just sledge it. They'll just... It's a little complicated. It's a little more tricky than that. So yes, if you put castle barricades on windows most of the time, attack is going to attack a repick and get rid of it. But in ranked, you'd be surprised how much people overlook stuff like this. And also on this particular set of map geometry, what we're concerned about isn't per se whether or not they're going to get rid of the barricade. How exposed is the attack when they try to get rid of the barricade? In this example I'm showing you, the answer is, well, you know, right? So that is delay. That is wasting time. Yes, the attack can cut you off from lobby. Yes, if you have situational awareness and you're aware of it, you're in a safe position, you can 100% go for this play. This is why keeping lobby and ATM's control is so nice for the defense. Don't place it in a way that your defenders can't get back to site to help you. That's dumb. They might get caught out too. If I'm playing Kanto and they have, let's say they have lobby control. I need to get out of here. I need to get back to site. Huh? What? Hello, castle, what are you doing? So yeah. Don't place castle barricades in a way that's going to screw up the pathing for your team. Place castle barricades in a way that is going to protect you or waste the time and resources of the defense. Castle barricades are destroyed in 9 melee hits. So you can prep the castle barricade more or less. Teammate calls out somebody is there. Melee it. Go for the pick. Pulse's job is to get info for his team. He does so with a beeping box, a cardiac sensor that will pinpoint the exact location of enemies that are caught within its relatively short radius, about 8 meters or so. Shouldn't you know this stuff? You're making the video. It's 2 hours long. Just deal with it, okay? It's like 8 meters. Solis, I think, is 10, 12, and then IQ is like 18. So it goes Pulse, Solis, and IQ in that order in terms of the amount of range. Basically, it's enough to see if people are coming down blue stairs, and you can see kind of into server a little bit, which is cool because the amount of people that you see on the scanner is important information. If you see 3 people here, and let's say you get a pick, that means that 1 could be going for a back flank, could be in garage, could be going for a backside drop if the hatches are open. You get the idea. Pulse is obviously comboed up pretty often with C4, the classic Macy J, right? You see him on the scanner, you go for that. Pretty standard Pulse play. Pulse is a pretty tough operator to play for newcomers. I wouldn't recommend him to everybody And he's just kind of fallen out of the meta right now because there are other operators. Right now, the meta is a lot more leaning towards crowd control and information denial with Solis, with Fenrir. Pulse doesn't have that sort of like guaranteed delay. Yeah, the information is good, but he's also super vulnerable on the scanner. It takes a while for him to go back up with his gun. It leaves him pretty vulnerable. It puts him in situations where he can capitalize on picks, but his gun is, kind of weak even with the 1.5, and he is a 3 armor. So you kind of have to know what you're doing to get the most out of Pulse. That's not to say that he's a bad character. He's pretty good in ranked. One of the better ranked characters in my opinion. But for everything that I just listed, he doesn't get picked a ton in competitive. Thermite's job is to open the wall. Pretty straightforward. He does so with 2 exothermic charges, basically big breach charges that he can deploy on reinforced walls. He's great for exterior walls. He is not so great for interior walls because he has to deploy a charge on the wall manually right up next to it. It's vulnerable. He's exposed. The charge is exposed. So for exterior walls, he's really good. Thermite will blow up the most amount of stuff within the shortest amount of time. Look how fast this charge works. And he makes, he says big effing hole. He's right. It's a big effing hole. It's a standing hole. You can get in there. Bada bang, bada boom. Quintessential hard breacher. One of the most important, necessary roles in Rainbow Six Siege. He has a decent gun. He's got scopes on it. You can fight from range pretty well. He has smoke grenades, which are nice for executes. Thermite's a good op. He's a classic Siege operator. It's not much else to talk about. Make sure that you got buddies supporting you.
Inside. I have the camera fresh. One more. Maestro coming up as well. I'll tell you when. Beepers. He's very slow.
He might have gone all the way top.
No, pushing beepers. No, I have the camera.
Alright.
1 op 4 remaining.
Interesting. Saving.
Montaigne's job is to get in there and get map control, and he's not asking for it. He's taking it. He does so with a bulletproof shield that protects his body completely from the front and a little bit to the sides. He's completely bulletproof in this state. He's also not quite as vulnerable to C4 as other shield characters from the front. Monty's really great for this particular site because he can just get up here on rafters and then not only ping, but also pressure defenders that are trying to shoot your teammates with the threat of ADSing and shooting them while they're not looking at him. He makes a sound cue when he goes back and forth between these shields. When you're playing against a Monty, you really want to be conscientious of that. With single doorways like this, Monty is pretty much incapable of getting pushed away. So in a post-plant situation, sometimes you can guarantee a win. He excels in situations where you have advantage man count or even man count. Crouch like this to protect the shield with your feet. Get in there, use the shield to your advantage with the melees. Go back and forth in between, fully extended, non-extended. Part of what makes Monty dangerous are these mix-ups. Twitch's job is to disrupt enemy util with a set of 2 shocking drones that can get rid of weak defender gadgetry, including default cameras. She does so with a little laser beam that fires from the drone an infinite distance in a straight line. It has a set number of charges that it can keep in pocket, but it will recharge indefinitely. However, it does take a pretty significant amount of time, so try not to waste them. Make sure that you're going to hit the shot. Twitch is obviously a really, really useful Mira counter. Get up there underneath the gas canister and pop it. The strongest Mira counter in the game. You want to bring Twitch more than Brava for wall denial. Brava can help with wall denial, that is true, but it's less efficient. The drone has to stay alive. It takes more time to do. Twitch can just get in there from any distance, doesn't have to get close. Boom, Cade Claw's gone, open up the wall. One of my favorite things to do with Twitch is combo her up with IQ. If you are anticipating Valkyrie, especially on big maps like this, where Valkyrie is going to rely on the cameras to cover vast, sweeping paths of map terrain. You can use Twitch to get rid of those Valk cameras, locate them, get rid of the intel safely, quickly, efficiently. She has the FAMAS assault rifle. Guys, stop trying to make it work, okay? If you're trying to make that work, you're a crazy person. It has too much recoil. It's not worth it. The 417 is the best DMR in the game. 2-shot body shot kill at pretty much any range. What's not to like? Just use the 417. Doc is a healer. That's his job. He is the quintessential healing operator of this FPS game of Rainbow Six Siege. He has a healing stim pistol. The dart does have a travel time. You do have to lead with the dart a little bit. So you want to tell your teammates, hey, stand still for a bit, and then shoot the dart. It's a pretty substantial heal. Your teammates, even at very low health, will thank you for it. You can also heal yourself, and that's one of the things that makes Doc such a powerful anchor. You pretty much gotta shoot him in the head, and if you don't outright kill him, he can heal himself back to full, no problem. And if he has health to spare, he can also give himself a brief overheal like this. It'll taper off over time, but that extra health boost can make the difference sometimes, especially if the enemy team doesn't do their due diligence and ends up shooting you in the legs or the arms or something. He has high rate of fire, low recoil weapons with 1.5 scopes attached. He can hold from a pretty significant distance. You can roam with him. He does make a lot of noise. Everybody knows about the Doc Roamer, the Doc Spawn Peak. It's quintessential Siege. It's not something that you're probably, not used to seeing. He's really good at taking direct engagements. You can put him pretty much anywhere you want. You can roam with him provided you're not running around too much. You can anchor on the site. His job is to take gunfights, and he does a pretty good job of it. It gives you a health pool boost. You can self-revive when you're down. He has a 2-time scope on a full auto gun, which is pretty cool.
Ping, go and rotate. Standing up, crouch jumping.
They have an OSA.
Planting on ping, planting on ping. One's holding head holding head Prone on ping.
Diffuser active. Located the diffuser, destroy it. 1 op 4 remaining.
Your surface clear.
1 friendly operator remaining.
Jaeger's job is to make previously unplayable positions into playable positions. He does so with a set of trophy systems. He gets 3 of them. Typically, you want to stack them like this, 2 on a particular spot. This will force the attack to do one thing primarily. Throw 2 stuns, and if those 2 stuns exhaust the ADSs, it'll give you time to run away from an impending frag grenade. Or you can pull a bluff and then put a 3rd ADS, but that's kind of a pocket strat. The ADSs will reset relatively quickly. You do have to capitalize on the opportunity that presents itself. If the enemy does not, they will try to push you off of the spot with the grenade again, and then the ADS will zap it. So, this is an example of an aggressive position that you can hold top mezzanine here to deny the wall getting opened. Usually, instead of taking a direct engagement with you, they will try to nade you off. Jaeger will make it a lot more difficult for the enemy to do that. You want to make sure that the LOS of the ADS is able to intercept the frag grenade. Hard cover, right angles against doorways, that's good. When you are placing a deployable shield, for instance, a deployable shield going here for Ivy, let's say you're holding bar games. You want the ADS to go forward of the shield, not behind it. If you put the shield here and then put the ADS there, you're going to be playing the shield position and then you're going to get naded off because the ADS does not have LOS on the nade. So it needs to go ahead like this. ADS goes here, shield goes behind it. Important principle, but you'd be surprised how many people screw it up. You get the idea. Bandit's job is to keep the wall closed. He does so with a set of shotgun boxes. He gets 4 of them. It looks simple, but I want you to take note of a particular aspect of the placement. So right now, attackers have a gadget. You might have heard of it. The secondary EMP. The secondary EMP is an impact grenade with a tiny, tiny radius. And if the enemy gets an idea of where you've placed your batteries, the enemy is going to try to find how the utility is placed. Then the secondary EMP is going to get thrown directly at the gadget. If the bandit batteries are placed like this, stop it. Because the secondary EMP is gonna, you want to place it like this. That way, they have to throw 2 EMPs. One for the left wall, one for the right wall. Bandit is famous for the so-called bandit trick. You're gonna turn your audio up a little bit. If you have a teammate with a shotgun, they can shoot the wall open before you reinforce it so that you can hear it a little bit better. You listen for the audio cue, then put the battery down, and then if you do it in time, it'll zap whatever charge is on the wall. You don't want to do this against Ace. Ace will just throw 2 charges at the same time, and Bandit can't do anything about that. He's got to back off and then play for the entry. He has a really good gun. Low recoil, relatively high rate of fire, decent damage output. He has C4. He's a 3-speed. He's a pretty versatile character that's not the direct wall denier of the game, but he's still pretty nice to have. What you can do with Bandit, at least in this particular example, is supplement electric wall denial. So you could have a Cade, for instance, Cade stick here, like I showed you earlier in the video, another one down here, and then you can have Bandit get the electric for the garage walls. So he's really good as a supplement. He's really good for turtle strats. Same rule applies for the wall. Cade gets the main wall, you get the garage walls, you have a pretty stalwart defense that the attack has to allocate a lot of resources to deal with. IQ's job is to gather information for her team. She does so with a deployable scanner from her wrist that she can fire her pistol with. I like to keep a suppressor on the pistol, just in general, to deal with cameras and make sure they can't see the tracers. But in IQ's particular example, you can shoot stuff through floors below and people can't tell what's going on usually. As you can tell, the range of the scanner is very far, 20 meters. That is not insignificant. You should not discount that. That is what makes the gadget so powerful. So for big maps like this, you can effectively read the entire setup that the defense has for this entire room, for warehouse on Nighthaven Labs. You can tell if there are Fenrir mines in IT. You can tell if there are Thorn traps on the stairs. You can tell if there's Melusis, Valkyrie cameras in the room. You can see if Solis is below. Solis gets most of the mileage in the beginning of the round where she can deal with the drones. In my experience, Solis is going to find you more than you find Solis with the scanner. However, it is really nice to have that precise ability to see exactly where the utility is on the wall. So you can tell if the enemy has a bandit setup, has a Cade setup, has a mute setup, what specifically is on the wall, where's the utility, help your teammates with secondary EMPs snipe the utility, then get the wall open, or just go below and shoot it. IQ also finally has frag grenades again. However, if you want to work vertical, you should probably just bring breaching charges anyway, in my experience. IQ is a severely underrated operator right now. She had a moment where she wasn't really doing particularly hot, but in the recent meta, a lot of people are starting to come around to IQ, especially in a competitive environment, to figure out exactly where the site setup is. You don't even have to necessarily attack the setup head on. You can look and see if the enemy has a bunch of stacked defenses and then say, hey, they have Valkyries, they have Fenrir's, Thorns. Let's just go somewhere else. Let's hit it from the north side instead. Let's do a connector take. IQ has good guns with the ability to put an ACOG on the AUG. I'm trying to make the AUG work. I'll let you know if I figure it out. The recoil on this thing is really floaty and weird. I gotta say I do like the Commando more, but a part of me wants to make the ACOG work for some reason on the AUG because I am weird. Blitz's job is to aggressively get map control. I mean, this is kind of exaggerated, but it's not too far off. That means I can flash again. He gets 4 flashes on a shield that's bulletproof. He has to crouch to conceal his full body. He can also sprint with it up, which is pretty nice to have. He's vulnerable to the legs, but as we all know, limb shots don't do a lot of damage in Siege, so if you're caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, he'll get you. Obviously, the presence of a blitz without the proper utility can be pretty dangerous to confront head-on. You are vulnerable to getting meleeed while the shield is up, so it's important to get the flash off as you round a corner immediately upon seeing somebody. Blitz is great for corridor-heavy, linear maps like this that are kind of claustrophobic, lots of corner checking. He's not so great on big maps where you have to kind of run out in the open a lot for obvious reasons. So this kind of geometry that I'm looking at right now, this is a very standard kind of, blitz, blue bunker kind of rush. This is where you're going to get a lot of leverage with this guy. Map geometry like this. His pistol doesn't have that much recoil, so he's going to shoot you in the head if you're not careful. And if we're being real, just try to stay in tight confined spaces like this with Blitz and you'll be fine. He's not a bad operator for when you want to do this particular kind of strat. Aggressive map control, really quickly get in there, have teammates, watch out for smoke, watch out for Goyo, drone ahead of time so you're not walking into a giant setup. Fuse's job is to blow up as much crap as humanly possible through the floor below or through reinforced walls. He does so with 4 explosive charges that send out a bunch of cluster grenades in a right to left line. The cluster charges do a ton of damage to soft floors. They'll get rid of deployable shields, Goyo canisters, anything that is destructible will get blown up, including the enemy. These are deployable cluster charges that go through soft and hard surfaces. When you put it through a hard surface, it's going to take a second to drill through to the other side, and enemies can see it. But let me show you what it does real quick. So as you can tell, the charges go 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can see, you can do some makeshift vertical. Results may vary, but this is the basic idea. Fuse isn't a half bad vertical operator. He obviously has really useful verticality through the floor below. You can also combo this capability up with breaching charges to get specific vertical on places that you want. Usually this hatch is going to be reinforced for the site below if the team is not trolling. So this cluster charge can actually drill through the hatch and then clear connector for you. So that's going to make this corner of connector pretty much unplayable, which could force them out here into the doorway, and then, well, they're really vulnerable, right? Let's look at what the rotate would look like. So just with the fuse charge alone, I can cut off the site rotate. I can also clear behind pillar. Let's see what this cluster charge looks like to cut off the spot behind pillar. Let's pretend I'm a defender. Pretty dangerous, right? I was cut off from the left side there. I couldn't have gone that way. I have to run this way and completely expose myself, maybe potentially to an open wall, or to an open wall here on Wine. This is a really, really dangerous spot to be if Fuse is on the board. Glaz's job is sniping is good job, comrade. Takes 3 Glaz shots to take down a barricade. You get the idea. He has a high zoom scope and thermal vision on the scope itself. You see bad guys in yellow, and it doesn't have that much recoil. What you do is you play for cutoffs. If you've sniped in any other kind of video game, you probably already kind of have an idea of what to do. This is a really common strat for Coastline, where he can head glitch off of the cover here in Ruins. You'd be surprised how many picks you can get with this. And you'd also be surprised how many egotistical, gunner siege players will try to fight you on this. He also has a machine pistol secondary. One situation that Glaz particularly excels in is post plants. If you have a Glaz on the board and you manage to get the diffuser down, you can smoke off the crosses going into the diffuser room, and then you're big chillin'. So here'd be a common rotate. You smoke that off, and if they try to peek it, you punish them for it. You can also combo Glaz up with a Sens wall. Make sure you throw the smoke as deep as possible. Don't throw it like right on top of the thing, because then they can just get more map control for free. So in that example, they have to peek blind, and if they peek too far, you punish them for it. Tachanka's job is to deny area from a distance. That is the particular trait about his grenade launcher that makes him stand out from Goyo and Smoke. The arc of the grenade fires in a much straighter line like this. And as a result, you can cover ground from a distance more easily. That's red stairs covered from all the way over here. I can even go below the staircase like this. Yep, there we go. So that's what you want to leverage the most. Unfortunately, this is kind of a one-trick pony situation. There's certain map geometry where Tachanka is really good. I actually like bringing Tachanka on Villa quite a bit, and there are a lot of maps where it's just, why bother, right? Just bring a smoke instead. His grenade launcher is clunky. He is super vulnerable. Look at the animation swap time, right? You get the idea. If he's caught with this thing out, like, you're pretty much dead, and you have to have direct line of sight to really get a lot of leverage out of this thing. That being said, you want to get creative with some pre-planned strategies here if you really want to use Tachanka like a pro. Tachanka is cool in the sense that he has a fully automatic primary that also doubles as a sight setup gun. And this thing does a ton of damage. Sometimes it can kill in as little as 2 shots, which you're going to need because the rate of fire is super, super low. He also has a deployable shield, which I like quite a lot. Again, we want to take into consideration the distance. The trajectory is a lot flatter than you might think. It also bounces. But theoretically, I can hold the closet walk-in from a distance pretty safely. I can also hold the bricks walk-in from over here as well. The reason Tachanka often gets maligned as a bad operator is because he's not really as good in competitive. It's a bit of a Sam Fisher situation. Still, I think in a ranked environment, Tachanka's not that bad of an operator. And you can definitely have some fun with him if you have pretty decent situational awareness and try to cut off crosses into the bomb site from a distance. Make sure it doesn't bounce off the wall like that. Kapkan's job is to punish you for not looking down. He does so with a tripwire that can insta-kill you if you run into 3 of them at the same time. If this looks dumb and no one's ever going to run into this, you'd be fooled. This happened at the grand final of a LAN tournament not too recently. Kapkan's one of those weird characters where he takes advantage of mental bandwidth. In mid-elo, I would say that people are honestly probably more cognizant of Kapkan traps than low elo who don't pay attention at all, and high elo players who are so preoccupied with so many other things going on that it is very common, even at a competitive level, for these kinds of trap placements to work. The traps will do a little bit of damage to you if it's just 1. 2 of them will knock out injured opponents. And then 3 of them will kill you outright from full health. The traps work best on hard corners like this. To get people to look up and away from the trap and towards you, you want to place the traps on foot traffic areas where that's going to be more common, where people are going to be predominantly focused on the gunfights. This would be a good example of where to put a trap. Reason being, if the attack ever gets to a point where they're going to be pushing through this door to make an aggressive play, it's usually going to be a pretty big commitment. They're going to have their gun up, they're going to be ADS'd, and as you can see, un-ADS'd, it's a lot easier to see these things, but then, when you scope in, you get caught up with the gunfighting, you're not paying attention, you're focused on that, trying to anticipate the swing at head level, hit the shot, oh, I have an opportunity to make a play here, and then boom. He also has C4, and his gun isn't too bad either, it doesn't have a lot of recoil. He's a fun op to play, and he fits in a lot of team compositions. Tuberal's job is to waste as much time as possible through crowd controlling and gadget control. He does so with an ice gadget that will disable electronics and then make it a lot more difficult to push based off of movement. The gadget works through map terrain, which is really, really nice to have. In situations like this, if you're trying to hold down the bottom of white stairs, it's pretty much impossible to have any kind of counterplay. Not to mention, you'll notice your gun sight goes out because this gadget disables electronics too. So as you can tell, this gadget is hugely useful for wall denial. However, you want to take advantage of the fact that the gadget can work through walls, because if you throw it directly at somebody's feet, this isn't going to do anything because they can just shoot it. And here, it's only going to cover the entryway. So the gadget works best in close, confined environments where there's not a lot of movement space. This would be a good example. This is going to make trying to peek through kitchen a complete pain in the ass. The gadget also makes footsteps, so you can combo this gadget up, have a pre-prepped C4, and blow him up. Wall denial is probably Tuberal's most important component. To give you an idea, I'm going to play in real time just how long this gadget lasts. That was 12 seconds. So 12 times 4, that's 48 seconds of wall denial time. That is almost a minute. That is almost a third of the round that you can waste with Tuberal on just one wall. So yeah, he's pretty freaking strong. I do want to talk about the guns very briefly. A lot of people are going to wonder why I have an MPX equipped. I'm more comfortable with it for the fire rates. The AR-15 with a 1.5 is a pretty solid weapon on defense, but I'm not a huge fan of the small magazine size. In a game with one-shot headshot, I'm always going to take this option, unless it's a special case like the Mark 14 on Aruni, because that gun is just so freaking good comparatively. But the MPX is just one of the better SMG options, and you can pull off stuff like this that you can't do with the DMR. I want to give some big shout outs. First of all, Carter, mainly known as Lynx, and his casting work, helped me get some clips based off of Pro League plays for these gadgets so that I could get some really specific, interesting dynamics going for you guys. So you could say he was a very valuable research assistant. Thank you, Carter. I also want to thank my buddies Justin and Boho in the Faceit Staff Hub server who donated some clips to make sure this video had some high-octane action for you guys. I want to thank everybody who went into the ranked trenches with me for clip gathering for this video. I hate solo queuing. Without any of y'all, this video would not have been possible. I want to thank my strategy guy, Vexian, who's been coming up with the thumbnails and ideation for content over the course of the year. He is the reason for the culture change here at the GGE. And if you've watched this video the whole way through, consider yourself officially a part of the GGE. I can't wait to keep talking about this game and share with you the passion that I have for it. So here's to 2024. I'm gonna get the C4.
Look all brown.
C4 confirm?
It's secure.
Merry Christmas. Deuces.